going to call the meeting to order. I'd like to welcome all of you this evening to our council meeting. We ran out of agendas, so we didn't expect such a big crowd. We didn't know so many people would be interested in our agenda tonight. So I'm guessing there's some of you from Rancho. Yeah, right. So welcome to our meeting. I hope you enjoy our meeting tonight. We're going to start with a roll call by our city clerk, Kathy Valdez.
The record shall reflect that all members are present.
If you all rise, we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Councilmember Rigby.
Please join me. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In accordance with the Brown Act, I'd like to announce that as a result of convening simultaneous meetings, the members of the Buena Sanitation District will receive compensation of $147.75 for the district meeting pursuant to Buena Sanitation District Ordinance 2006-1. I'd like to remind everyone that the Vista Municipal Code requires members of the public to observe order and decorum at the meeting and to conduct themselves in a courteous manner. The ordinance was adopted to allow for public input and to facilitate city business without disruption of the meeting. Applause is appropriate for items listed under the presentation portion of the agenda only. An attendee should remain seated during the meeting. Persons needing to stand are requested to step outside the city council chambers where video and audio of the meeting are playing. And this is also listed on our agenda cover sheet. And I know we're kind of we've run out of seats in here, so I think that they've set the TV up out in the lobby, and it's there out there that people can sit out there. So students wishing to receive credit for attending this evening's meeting must stay for a minimum of an hour. However, we ask that you stay for the completion of an item rather than leaving in the middle of a discussion. When you're ready to leave, you can ask one of the sheriff deputies or a staff member in the back of the room to sign your paper. To speak for 3 minutes on an item on the agenda, please fill out a speaker slip with the number of the item you want to speak on and give it to the clerk secretary, the city clerk secretary. So speaker slips are available just outside the city council chambers. And the next thing on our agenda, or the first thing, is the approval of our agenda by our city manager, Patrick Johnson.
Mayor, thank you. There are no changes to the agenda this night, with the exception that closed session was not listed on the agenda, so the city attorney will take us out of closed session.
Okay, now I'll turn it over to our city attorney, Daryl Piper.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, the City Council did meet in closed session this evening on items CS1, CS2, and CS3. With respect to items CS2 and CS3, no action was taken. That's required to be disclosed at this time with respect to item CS1, which is the case of Robert Martin versus City of Boise. The City Council voted to join in an amicus brief on this case, which involves law enforcement and housing obligations for the homeless. The vote was Ritter, Rigby, and Green, yes. Contreras, no. And Councilmember Franklin was not present for the vote. That concludes my presentation.
The next thing on our agenda is our consent calendar. The recommendations on the following consent calendar will be enacted in one motion unless an item is removed from the calendar, and any member of the public can remove an item by submitting a request to speak card to our clerk secretary. Items removed from the consent calendar will be considered immediately following the adoption of the calendar. And we have 9 consent items this evening. And do I have anything pulled? Anything pulled here? If nothing's pulled, Deputy Mayor Franklin. Thanks.
Madam Mayor, I wanted to move the passage of the consent agenda, and if I may be allowed to ask that the record reflect that I would have voted yes on the item in closed session had I been present.
Okay, do I have a second? Councilmember Rigby seconded that motion, so please cast your ballots, your votes. That motion passes unanimously. That takes us into our public hearings, and we have one public hearing this evening. This is a special public hearing to receive testimony regarding planning case 19-0148, a special use permit for use storage at 1340 North Melrose Drive. So the public hearing is now open. Community Development and Engineering Director John Conley is going to introduce the item.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Chris Winters, our Associate Planner, will be providing the presentation.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Mayor Ritter and members of the council. This is an application for a special use permit to allow for the construction of a 3-story self-storage facility within the shell of an existing 35-foot high industrial building. The existing building and associated site improvements were developed through a site development plan in 2002. The project site is located at 1340 North Melrose Drive and is approximately 3.3 acres in size. The existing building has a ground floor just over 51,000 square feet in size, a second floor mezzanine approximately 6,000 square feet in size. The property is served by 2 separate driveways off of North Melrose. Both driveways are utilized for access to the subject site and for access to the automotive suites located in the 2 buildings on the adjacent property to the north. If I can get the next slide here. The general plan land use designation for the site is industrial general, which allows for a broad range of commercial and industrial uses. The property is zoned industrial commercial under specific Plan 8, which covers the North Melrose industrial area. This area is consistent with the general plan's industrial general designation. The project primarily involves interior tenant improvements, which would convert the existing 2-story building into a 3-story self-storage facility with approximately 50,000 square feet per floor. Since the improvements can be completed within the shell of the existing building, the building height would not need to be changed or increased. The interior modification would provide for 1,075 storage units total. As an ancillary service, the applicant requests to provide vehicle storage for customers in the parking areas located to the south and to the east of the building. These areas have very limited visual exposure and would be secured and screened by 8-foot tall iron fencing. If I can go back to one more slide, please. Thanks. This slide shows the layout for the first floor. All 3 floors would be similar, and each level would accommodate approximately 350 storage units. 2 elevators would be installed for the customer's use, where shown by the orange squares on the plan. These site images show the existing street frontage of the property and also illustrate the limited visual exposure for the vehicle storage areas based on the layout of the site, the landscaping, and the topography. Next slide. Regarding zoning, self-storage facilities are a permitted use by right within the existing zoning. However, a special use permit is required for any structures to exceed 2 stories within specific Plan 8. Therefore, staff recommends that the City Council adopt a resolution approving a special use permit to allow for construction of a 3-story self-storage facility within the interior space of the existing industrial building. Staff and the applicant are available to answer any questions.
Okay, I have speakers. I'd like to limit. We have several speakers on one of the discussion items, so I'm going to limit the speakers to 2 minutes this evening, if that's okay with everybody. I see heads shaking. Okay. So I'm going to start with the applicant. Actually, here it's Lawrence Nora.
I'm here, Your Honor, to answer any questions that the City Council may have.
Do you have questions for me? You want to wait and ask questions? We're going to wait to hear the other speaker, and then we'll ask questions. Okay. Dale Marquardt.
The same situation applies to me. I'm only put a slip in case you wanted to ask some questions of the documents that I presented yesterday.
Okay. Okay, then I'll turn it over to the City Council. Anybody have any questions? Councilmember Contreras.
So I'm not a huge fan of all the storage facilities going up, but in this case, it would be just modifying an existing building. And there is the by right. My question is, what existing business is there right now?
Who'd you like to ask that to?
Whoever has the answer.
Okay, how's staff?
The existing business is Douglas Wheel Manufacturing.
Okay. Yeah, I am for this project since we're not really changing a whole lot. I would like to hear what the rest of my colleagues have to say.
Councilmember Green.
Yeah, my biggest thing is just the impact on the businesses over there. I don't know how many trips do they have to do anything like that in this case when it's a storage to say, hey, we're going to generate this many trips and it's going to be this effect on the businesses around. And I know a wheel manufacturing place probably has less people driving in and out of it, I would think, than what is that, 1,000 storage units or however many storage units go in there.
So we did not require traffic study. Storage as a land use doesn't generate a lot of traffic. It's somewhere in the realm of probably 100 trips a day or less.
Okay.
So based on the existing uses in the park and the prior study that was done at the time of the specific plan, it appears that it would not create any impacts to the surrounding uses.
And public notice was given and no surrounding businesses came forward with?
Public notice was provided. We did have an adjacent business owner come to the Planning Commission and express concerns about access through the driveway to the property to the north, which is still accommodated with this development plan, so there's no objection.
And is that B&D Auto by any chance?
That's correct.
Okay, awesome. All right, that was my question. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Rigby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for that report. Notification was given to the neighbors. What was the distance of the notification?
Our notification is 500 feet from the boundary of the property.
Okay. And you said Douglas Wheel Manufacturing is there currently. Why are they leaving the site? Are they going out of business? Are they moving to a bigger facility in Vista because they're getting so much more work? Do we know why?
That would probably be a better question for the applicant.
Okay. Wasn't sure if we knew. I think this gentleman wants to answer that question, if I may, Madam Mayor.
You may.
Thank you.
I'm the applicant, Larry Nora, speaking on behalf of the project. Douglas Wheel is owned by a Texas organization, and they're moving their facilities down there to consolidate them.
Oh, we don't like to hear our businesses leaving California to Texas, but thank you for the information.
You're welcome.
So is the business vacant now then?
The business will close its doors on December. Starting in December, they're going to start moving all their equipment to Texas.
Have you tried to lease it? Have you tried to lease it to anyone else since then?
No, we have not. We're actually self-storage developers, so that's what we do.
You're the
business.
self-storage people. Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
So, if I may continue,
yes.
You're the developer for this project. Did you seek out this property, or did they seek out you?
The project was put on the market by Mr. Douglas put the property on the market through a brokerage firm, and we approached the brokerage firm, and we were successful in bidding on the project.
Okay, thank you. I did receive your letter, Mr. Markart, so I lost track of where he went. There he is in the back. Thank you for providing your letter. It was very informative and very impassioned, and I appreciated it very much. I have to agree with my colleague that because this is a use that is allowed here, and it can be by right, there's not really much that we can say to that effect. I am a firm believer in the free market enterprise, the open market, competitive businesses, competition. And we do have a lot of storage facilities in Vista, and we have more opening up. But I don't see that there's really any particular way that we could say no to this one, given the location that it's in and the current zoning for it. I think competition is healthy among our business community. It's also only altering the interior of the space. The exterior of this facility, of this property, will not be changed at all. We're only looking to change the interior of the space to accommodate the storage facility units individually. So, not a fan of storage units, but I really don't see that we can say no to this without getting into trouble.
I see no other speakers. I have a problem. I don't like to see a company go away and lose jobs when I know that storage doesn't create a lot of jobs. Just probably takes one person at the desk to, lease the storage units. But I do know that I have someone that tried to lease some storage units, and they went to 3 different places that were full. So I know that they probably are needed. And they actually found one across the street at the Melrose storage place across the street there. So I know that they're needed in this area. But I just hate to see a company leave and have and now we lose employees at jobs in our and so I would love to see another manufacturer or something come in there. So I hate to turn that over, but like you say, I don't see another choice. Deputy Mayor, maybe he'll convince me.
I would just offer a motion to adopt the council resolution approving the special use permit requested by the applicant.
Councilmember Green?
I will be seconding the motion, but I did just want to clarify as well. There's a lot of confusion as far as what we as the city ask to be brought into the city and what property owners ask to be brought into the city. And I just want to make sure as a public that they know the owner of this property put their property for sale, marketed it as being able to be sold for storage, and we're basically just honoring the owner of the property's request. We're not out asking for storage people to come to our town and build storages. So with that, I do second the motion. Call for the vote.
Okay, I will ask for the vote. That motion passes unanimously. With that, we move on to our discussion items. We have 2 discussion items this evening. The first one is cannabis uses. Our Assistant City Manager, Ellie Zimmerman, is going to provide the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. So we're back to talk about cannabis again. We were last before you in June. We had a discussion about the current moratorium and which, if any, items the City Council would like to look at permitting going forward. So this is a follow-up on that same topic. As I've mentioned on prior occasions, a moratorium is in place on all cannabis-related land uses, exclusive of the medical retail uses that were authorized under Measure Z. The moratorium was adopted by the City Council on December 11, 2018, and it is in effect for 12 months unless the City Council chose to extend it. But what we're looking for is your direction on whether any of the uses under the moratorium should be permitted going forward. And following that direction, but prior to December 2019, each use would either come back before the City Council a final time to formally authorize it or to formally prohibit that use going forward. So on the 25th of June, staff identified testing, manufacturing, cultivation, delivery, and adult retail land uses for discussion. And City Council members at the meeting also raised the topics of distribution and cannabis cafes. Following the staff report and public testimony, questions, and discussion, staff was given direction to bring back for further review testing, manufacturing, distribution, and delivery. There was not consensus support for cultivation, for adult use retail, or for cannabis cafes at that time. So today we are going to discuss the 4 uses before you that we were directed to bring back information on. I'm going to begin with testing, talk a little bit about it, talk about the staff recommendation, move on to manufacturing, then distribution and delivery. I'm assuming at that point you may want to stop to hear the public speakers, have discussion and questions, and then what I'd like to do is bring them back before you individually again to get a vote on each item, whether or not to bring it forward as a permitted land use in some sort or to prohibit it going forward. So we'll begin with testing. There was prior unanimous support of the City Council at the June 25th meeting to allow for testing facilities, which are key to enforcing health and safety standards in the cannabis industry. Testing labs are used to determine the level of THC, which is the potency level of either the flower or the concentrate. And it also is used to look for foreign impurities, moisture levels such as mold, pests, pesticides, all sorts of things that are not allowed. So this is their safety component. All cannabis that is harvested, manufactured, or sold in California is subject to testing. And given that the City Council, all of you believe that this is something that we should look for, the staff is recommending that we do allow for testing as a use in our business park specific plan. And in addition to all the state regulations that fall for the testing use, we would recommend that they obviously receive their state license, that we require annual site inspections, and then, as are already required under Vista Municipal Code Chapter 7.1, which was the Measure AA that was adopted, we would require quarterly submittal for the proof of gross revenues and associated tax payments, as well as an annual audit of gross revenues. That completes testing. It's a simple one. Manufacturing, we talked about, and then we had a discussion about whether or not there could be a difference between a heavy manufacturing that might involve chemical solvents or other flammable and hazardous materials and a light manufacturing. And you asked for information to be brought back about any possibilities. So after research, we did determine that there is a separate state license for whether or not you're going to be a light or a heavy manufacturer. There is a license type 6 that allows for the use of extraction methods that are mechanical or use non-volatile solvents. And examples of a non-volatile solvent would be CO2, ethanol, water, food-grade dry ice, and then cooking oils or even butter. If you're a Type 6 licensee, you may also hold a Type N license, and that allows for infusion of cannabis concentrate into other products, food products typically. Or a Type P, which is just packaging and labeling. And so if you get a Type 6, you may also hold a Type N and a Type P. The state, you also asked about basically marketing towards children, and the state has put into place already regulations, a number of regulations, one of which is, of course, that packaging be tamper-proof, child-resistant, and that the label may not be attractive to children. They put out guidelines talking about colors and not using the word candy or candies or any derivative form of it, even if it's spelled with a K or, or a Z instead of an S. Like they're pretty clear about what they talk about in terms of marketing, not having the marketing look like it's for kids. That would be kind of the overall research that we did. There was also kind of a conversation about potentially limiting the number of the potential licenses to be allowed under this use. So if the City Council direction at the end of this meeting is to move forward with a manufacturing use, we would recommend that it be allowed, that a total of 2 licenses be allowed in the business park specific plan with a special use permit, that we would allow the Type 6 only, and the N and the P, if they would like them, require annual site inspections, and then as similar to we'll say with every single one, what was required under Measure AA, Vista Municipal Code Section 7.10, quarterly submittal of gross revenues, associated tax payments, and an annual audit. Distribution was a new item that was brought forward in June. There is a distributor license. It's called a Type 11, and it allows for the transporting of cannabis goods between licensees. You can arrange for testing of cannabis goods. You can conduct quality assurance review of the cannabis goods to ensure compliance with packaging and labeling. And in addition to the transportation and quality assurance, a licensed distributor may also package or repackage or label or relabel cannabis uses. So they are also under the same state regulations and auspices regarding tamper-proof packaging, child-resistant packaging, not having labels or marketing materials that are attractive to children. All of those regulations that apply to manufacturing also apply to a distributor license. If the distributor, if they take physical possession of a cannabis product, they are also and it hasn't been tested yet, and they don't have their certificate of assurance from testing, then they are also required to make sure that the testing happens of that product, and they have to be able to account for all the inventory and ensure all records on that product for a minimum of 7 years. So there's some pretty onerous audit requirements on those as well. If the City Council is desirous of looking towards allowing for this use, we would recommend, very similar to the manufacturing, that we allow a limited number of licenses or license holders in this business park specific plan with a special use permit. Everything else the same: annual site inspections, quarterly review of payments, annual audit. And then the final item was delivery. This one we had a little bit more of a discussion. As you know, there's state regulations that are being challenged but currently apply in the state that allow delivery from any authorized retailer to any residential jurisdiction, whether or not that jurisdiction has allowed for any cannabis land uses. So one of the things we discussed was the competitive disadvantage that the Measure Z businesses, which are allowed in our community, would be at if we didn't also allow them the opportunity to deliver. Some of the discussion that happened on the June 25th meeting had to do with the fact that under the medical retail license, a person with an authorized medical card may obtain cannabis products under the age of 21, where an adult use licensee are prohibited from selling to anyone under 21. The City Council asked us to look into the possibility of allowing the Measure Z license holders to deliver both medical and adult use retail cannabis products, but to prohibit any deliveries to anyone under the age of 21. So it would be what we were calling a hybrid approach when we did our research and evaluation, and we also reached out to some outside consultants because it's not something that we've heard of anybody doing. As identified in the agenda report, what was determined was that yes, you could do this, but it would be legal to implement a hybrid option, but it would not be practical to either regulate or reasonable to enforce. Because in this case, you'd have two state licenses under one roof granted to each retailer. One would be for the medical side, one would be for the adult use side. And the city would be the sole responsible party for enforcing that the adult use was only provided via delivery and that the medical that was provided via delivery was not provided to anyone between the ages of 18 and 20. We would face considerable challenges associated with attempting to police that hybrid structure. There's also potential hurdles that were brought to our attention because the state doesn't have those types of restrictions on their license, so there would be no support from the state in terms of enforcement or backup. And once you've allowed a portion of a use, there's some concern that there would be an automatic presumption that the whole use should be allowed, and we might be open ourselves up to potential litigation. So the staff would not recommend that we move forward with a hybrid option. If that's something that happens in the future with other jurisdictions, maybe we can follow it and see how it's going. But at this time, we wouldn't recommend trying to merge some version of the medical retailers and the adult use retailers. But we are still recommending that medical cannabis deliveries be authorized for the Measure Z retailers only. We have the additional regulations that were identified in the staff report, notably including that each delivery driver carry with them proof of employment, proof that they are age 21 or older, that their vehicle is registered and insured, and that for each of those retail locations, they have one on-site parking space provided for each of their delivery drivers so that their cars are not impacting our roads and our public parking spaces. So that completes my overview. And at this point, if the City Council desires, I would recommend that we pause for public comments and then return for discussion and questions and go back through the items one more time.
Okay, I have several speakers, so do you want to hear the speakers first? Okay, we're going to allow 2 minutes tonight, and if you will, I'll call 3 names. If the other 2 would stand over here and you'll be ready to speak, that will help us move them through faster. So we're going to start with Carl Hughes, followed by Fatima Ashhaq, followed by Leticia Lopez.
Hello, City Council. I'm glad to be back at it again. And so today I'm going to be an apologist and address some claims that I've heard at several City Council meetings in the past. And the first one is that people like to think that marijuana is legal, whether in medical or recreational forms. However, we have Proposition 64, which allowed for recreational marijuana, and then Prop 215 back in, I think, 1996. However, that doesn't change federal law, which still considers marijuana a controlled substance. So I've also heard the claim, along with that, is that the citizens voted for Measure Z. However, then there's that conclusion that people must want it. But the reality is that simply that if citizens want something, that doesn't necessarily mean it's legal or good. I was thinking about an example. If we wanted to have an initiative to prevent, such as African Americans from voting in an election, like our city elections, that would be considered against federal law, the civil rights laws. However, we've decided to do Measure Z, which allows for medical marijuana dispensaries which sell a controlled substance, which is against federal law. And another claim is that the tax revenue is going to be amazing. However, the reality is we've learned from other substances such as cigarettes and alcohol, we can tax them, but that's not going to cover the social and healthcare costs of the effects of use. So we see cigarettes and we see diseases and cancer, but those healthcare costs are more than the tax revenue. And that goes for alcohol. So I don't see why we would think that would be different with marijuana. And I also heard the claim that it would be beneficial for the environment. And the reality is we have to think how much water and energy is growing marijuana. Like how much is it going to use? And lastly, I would address what is medical marijuana? Is it really medicine?
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Fatima, and do you have an interpreter? Fatima Ashok? Yes, and then the next two need interpreters, right? Okay.
Hello, good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Fatima Ashak. I'm a prevention specialist with the North Coastal Prevention Coalition, and I just moved back to Vista with my family. So excited to be back. It's been 2 weeks. I've been working in public health for over the past 6 years, and during those years, I've coordinated youth programs, and I've worked with young adults and helping them prevent alcohol and other drugs in their community and also on their college campuses. As a new mom, I'm very worried about policies that we're putting in place when it comes to marijuana. California was the leader in tobacco control, and we've forgotten lessons that have been learned time after time and time again. Research is clear now that marijuana use is particularly risky for adolescents' brain development. Marijuana can cause or worsen severe mental illnesses, especially psychosis, and it increases risks for developing schizophrenia. As a person in my 20s, I've seen the impact of marijuana among friends and family members time after time. Some stats that I came across was SANDAG's latest report that was extremely alarming. Marijuana use among juvenile offenders is at a 19-year high, with 55% testing positive for marijuana and only 11% are believing that it's even harmful. So we have a normalization issue as well. When lawmakers make it easy for anyone 18 and over to get medical recommendations and have marijuana delivered to their doorsteps, there's no enforcement against that happening and for it to be doing so illegally. It reinforces the message to young people that getting marijuana is no big deal. And I'm hoping that you guys, think of our youth and think of how big of a deal it is for them to not get it in their hands.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Leticia Lopez, followed by Sylvia Lopez, followed by Adira Rodriguez and Jillian Northway. I think they're going to speak together.
Buenas noches,
Good evening.
Concilio.
Council.
Estoy aquí porque me interesa mucho con las regulaciones que están haciendo con los
I am
cannabis.
here because I'm very interested in the regulations
Soy
that
residente de
You can slow down and you need to speak up because I couldn't understand what you said.
Tienen que hable más despacio.
Okay. Mi nombre es Leticia López. Soy
My name
residente.
is Leticia Lopez.
Soy residente de Vista.
I'm a Vista resident.
Vivo en 540 Raintree Drive, cerca de dos parques.
400 Century Drive, close to two parks.
Y tengo vecinos que usan la marihuana
I have neighbors that use marijuana.
y la empezaron a usar más ahora que pasó la ley Z.
Now that Ley 7 has passed, they've begun to use it more.
Tengo un vecino que casi todo el día la usa en la calle
I have a neighbor who uses it almost all day in the street.
Y si salgo a la yarda de mi casa, huele muy fuerte
I
y
go
vive un
out
poco
of the
retirado de la casa.
My house,
A mí
it
me,
smells really strong, and
a mí me da dolor de cabeza.
to the other side of my house even, and it gives me a headache.
Tengo niños que ellos no tienen por qué estar encerrados.
I have children. There's no reason for them to be closed up inside.
Ellos aman la libertad y la disfrutan.
They love freedom and they enjoy it.
Y ni en su propia casa la pueden tener porque su mamá los tiene que meter adentro.
And they can't even have it in their own house because their mother has to keep them closed up
Por el olor de la marihuana.
because of the smell of marijuana.
Vamos al parque, tampoco pueden estar jugando porque hay personas
We go to the park and they can't even be playing because people come up that
están usando la marihuana.
are using marijuana.
Salimos a caminar para hacer ejercicio, para llevar a los niños a la escuela.
We go out to walk for exercise to bring the children to school.
Huele a marihuana.
It smells like marijuana.
Ya no es nada más la contaminación de los carros, es también la de la marihuana.
Not just contamination from cars, it's also from marijuana.
Y es triste
It's sad.
que les tenga que decir en el parque, vámonos a la casa,
I have to
porque
tell
no
them at
está
the
bien
park,
estar aquí, porque están consumiendo,
It's not good to stay here because
están usando marihuana, alcohol.
they're using marijuana and alcohol.
A veces hay homeless en los parques que están borrachos,
Sometimes there's
drogados,
homeless people in the parks that are drunk.
y no estoy segura yendo a un parque porque tengo miedo de que si está drogado me pueda hacer algo malo a mí o a mis
I don't feel
niños.
safe in the park because if they're on drugs, something could happen to me.
Y es triste
It's sad.
porque con esto que pasaron va a ser más. Y las colillas de cigarro están por las calles, los parques. Ahora los envases,
What you have just passed with that is going to be more. Now the interpreter needs to clarify.
las colillas de cigarro
Oh.
están en las calles.
The cigarette butts are all over the streets.
Y ahora he visto los envases de la marihuana
Now I've seen the bases of the marijuana
tirados en las calles.
strewn about the streets.
Las personas que usan la marihuana son personas irresponsables.
The people who use marijuana are irresponsible people.
No piensan ni en sus propias familias.
They don't even think about their own families.
Y es triste que todo esto que está pasando
It's sad, everything that is happening,
sea apoyado por ustedes,
that might be supported by you guys.
porque el alcohol lo hicieron legal, pero los menores de edad lo consiguen ilegalmente.
Now
Hay,
that the alcohol has been approved, but the children can get hold of it illegally.
hay personas mayores que se los consiguen.
Your time is up, so I need to have you wrap up if you could, if you ever end.
Okay.
So sorry,
Pues,
but
está bien.
That's fine.
Gracias.
gracias. Sylvia Lopez, followed by Adira Rodriguez and Julia Northway, and followed by Erica Leary.
Buenas tardes a todos.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Can you speak right in the microphone for us? Thank you.
Tengo algunas preguntas para ustedes.
I have some questions for you.
La primera, quiero saber por qué aprobaron los dispensarios.
First one is, why did you approve the dispensaries?
Segunda, ¿vale la pena envenenar a nuestra comunidad, a nuestros jóvenes? ¿Cuántos de ellos dejarán la escuela?
So the second one is it worth it to poison our community, our youth, and how many of them will give up going to school?
¿A cuánta gente quieren vender la droga? ¿De qué edades y cómo van a controlar las ventas?
How many people do you want to sell drugs to? What are their ages? And how are the sales going to be controlled?
¿Cómo la policía controlará la posesión de drogas, los crímenes y todos los delitos que vendrán? Muchos adictos harán que lo que sea para conseguir la próxima dosis.
How will the police control the possession of drugs, the crime, and all of the crimes that will come about from so many addicts, and what will they do what will those people do to get their next dosage?
El dinero que ganarán o ya está ganando la ciudad con los dispensarios, ¿en qué lo van a utilizar? ¿Alcanzará para corregir los efectos negativos que esto traerá?
And the money that will be earned, the city is already earning it with the dispensaries, and what will it be used for? To counteract the negative effects of what it will bring?
¿Qué harán con tantos adictos, niños jóvenes que probablemente dejarán la escuela?
What will you do with all of the drug addicts, the children and youth that are probably going to leave school?
¿Cuántos centros de rehabilitación van a poner para atender a los adictos? ¿Serán gratis, accesibles?
And how many centers for rehabilitation are you going to put to take care of all of the addicts? Will they be free or accessible?
¿Podrán internar a los adictos involuntariamente y cuánto nos costará a la comunidad?
Will you be able to subject the addicts to there by force? And how much will that cost the community?
¿Cómo será conocida la ciudad de Vista en algunos años más?
A few years down the road, how will we know this? What will the city of Vista look like?
¿Como una ciudad próspera, segura, saludable y feliz?
As a prosperous, safe, and healthy city?
¿Como una ciudad con delincuencia, inseguridad, con un gran número de adictos?
Or like a city with crime, lack of safety, and a large number of addicts?
Y habitantes temerosos de salir a las calles.
And with all of the city, all of the public afraid to go out on the street.
En lo personal, yo he vivido dos acontecimientos fuertes.
I've had two strong incidents happen to me personally.
Regresando de ir a dejar a mis niños a la escuela,
After I dropped my children off at school, I was returning.
Una persona que se veía que no estaba bien me persiguió.
And then a person who I could tell was not well followed me.
Corrí y gracias a un conductor gracias a un conductor que fue siguiendo a esa persona,
Thanks to a driver that was following that person,
dejó de perseguirme.
he stopped following me.
Llegué a mi casa, me encerré en mi cuarto
I got home, I closed myself up in my room,
y me puse a llorar como una niña chiquita.
and I
por el
started
miedo.
crying like a little girl.
Salgo a la calle y tengo miedo. Miro por todas partes. Yo no puedo proteger a mis hijas.
I go out into the street and I get scared. I look all around. I cannot provide safety for my girls.
Y con lo que está pasando, aún más me da miedo por mí y más por ellas. Gracias.
And for what is happening now, I'm more scared for myself and for what's going to happen to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Gracias.
Gracias.
Adira Rodriguez and Jillian Northway. And they're going to be followed by Erica Leary and followed by Stephanie Martinez.
Good evening. My name is Adara Rodriguez.
And I'm Jillian Northway.
And we're students at Rancho Buena Vista High School. One of the goals of the marijuana industry is to destigmatize use, to make marijuana seem harmless, relaxing, and something that everybody should try. As Vista City Council members, you could not control the passage of Measure Z, but you don't need to expand the marijuana business before knowing what impact it will have.
You can ask any of the students here that marijuana use is really, really prevalent at RBV. It's incredibly common to walk in the bathrooms to smell it, to have other students be high in class. Personally, my concern comes in when these students go to practice high or they drive home. Obviously, there's inevitable danger that comes from that. I think we both believe that if you're legally and safely using it at a legal and safe dispensary, that's your business. But allowing and expanding to delivery does not encourage legality or safety. There's a big difference between somebody legally driving to the store, getting it with their card, then coming back and doing what they need with it, versus somebody legally opening the door and then having it, and then once they close the door, you don't know who else is there. Maybe that they could give it to people who don't necessarily need it for safe and legal reasons, but who might make impulsive decisions on it. Expanding dispensaries to delivery will make it easier for people to impulsively and quickly get it and possibly make rash decisions among other people. And it will make it harder to keep who's having it legal. So allowing the deliveries will make it easier for people to get it who don't need it, but rather might be able to make impulsive decisions, and it'll be harder to track who is getting it. So yeah, for those reasons, we hope that as the leaders of your city, you think of the impact of the youth and don't expand legal marijuana dispensaries to delivery. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Erica Leary, followed by Stephanie Martinez, followed by John Byram.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Erica Leary, and I'm the Program Manager for the North Coastal Prevention Coalition. Part of our efforts to inform the community about substance abuse issues is to gather public opinion. And we recently created a brief survey that was posted on our website, shared with various groups, and collected in person at various events like food distributions and health fairs. In about 3 weeks' time, we got nearly 250 responses, about 75% of those from Vista residents. I don't have the detailed report of the findings, and we could keep continuing to collect if you'd be interested in more input, seeing as how any issue you direct staff to address will come back in another form. But among a quick synopsis, among our sample, the majority did not support expanding businesses to include delivery, distributors, or manufacturing, with a split of about 60 opposed and 40 in favor. In addition, some preliminary findings indicate strong support for strong regulations and concerns that those aren't being addressed. The biggest concern noted was that by over 75% of people was the operation of unlicensed marijuana dispensaries and unlicensed delivery businesses. The biggest support, at over 80%, was for local regulations that included warnings, fines, recovery, revoking licenses of businesses caught selling to minors, and ensuring that sellers check ID. But a recent LA Times story just featured that California's illicit marijuana market is more than double the legal market. And I've heard many of you on the dais speak before about how important it is to make sure your businesses follow the rules. But we all already know that so many people are not following the rules. And so that needs to be addressed before you expand your existing allowed licenses to include delivery. You've been pretty successful about closing illegal dispensaries, but it remains an ongoing problem. And as far as I can tell, in Vista and throughout the county, nobody's doing anything about the dozens and dozens of illegal delivery operators. I've asked various law enforcement agencies, and they express frustration with the lack of resources, the lack of effective penalties, the lack of public will to combat illegal delivery, etc.
Erica, your time is up.
Okay. Real quick, you might consider impounding vehicles, doing sting operations and compliance checks, and making some local ordinances in Vista to address enforcement.
Thank you. Stephanie Martinez, followed by John Byram, followed by Kathleen Lippett.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Stephanie Martinez, and I live near Townside Drive. In many states, marijuana is being legal for medical purposes, and so setting dispensaries for better access for these people that need this drug is good. But is it a good idea to have more dispensaries? At the same time, it is accessible for people that use it for pleasure. According to the article from Centers for Disease Control, states that use of marijuana has multiple downside effects which cause marijuana consumers to damage their body, lungs, and heart and brain. If marijuana is used frequently, people get addicted to the substance, and then marijuana is more harmful for young people because their body is barely developing. And not only does marijuana affect the marijuana consumers, but it also affects secondhanders, marijuana consumers who are next to them, and it also affects the environment. I hope that before you guys, the councils, make a decision, please take to heart the benefit of others in the city and to not make rash decisions based on the profit that you will gain or lose from it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. John Byram, followed by Kathleen Lippett, followed by Luke Smith.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is John Barman. I'm a prevention specialist with North Coastal Prevention Coalition. We have big concerns about the ability to enforce any regulations the city adopts. The State Bureau of Cannabis Control is severely understaffed and is doing little to make sure that state regulations are being followed. According to a recent LA Times story on August 15th, California's illegal marijuana market is more than double of the legal market. Here's a clip of a short story that they did in Los Angeles.
Here's the cash. And he never even asks to see her ID.
This was so easy, I didn't even have to show you my ID or anything. This was easier than buying a pizza.
Individuals are profit driven. They could care less about anyone's well-being or welfare.
He gladly slipped the pot through the mail slot without ever seeing a human being. The doctors worry while marijuana might be safe for adults, study after study shows it can impair brain development in people under 25.
You're stunting the growth of your brain.
Part of our role is to share best practices for local policies that help prevent and reduce substance use problems, such as limiting alcohol outlet density, social host ordinances, expanding smoke-free areas, tobacco retail licenses. Because marijuana policy is so new, we don't really know yet what works. But based on decades of research with tobacco and alcohol policy, we're pretty confident that increasing access and availability through delivery will take the wrong direction. I also know with over 30 years of recovery from addiction, that people suffering from drug addiction likely start their journey with alcohol and marijuana.
Thanks, John. Kathleen Lippitt, followed by Luke Smith, followed by Iram Yetarian.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. My name is Kathleen Lippitt. As a business owner, a mother, a grandmother, and a public health practitioner, I want to encourage all of you to take a stand on behalf of protecting the health and safety of your residents. Contrary to what you might think, requiring the marijuana manufacturing process to be non-volatile or light doesn't show Vista cares about protecting residents. What it shows is that you underestimate the intelligence of your residents. The problem is high THC marijuana products. Whether produced from volatile or non-volatile processes, they put your residents, families, businesses, recovering community, and most importantly, your youth at risk. I don't see any other way to look at this proposal without coming to several inferences. It may be willful ignorance, denial, or a complete lack of concern for the epidemic of adolescent marijuana use, especially vaping. Although it seems unlikely, perhaps you are unaware of the recent CDC warning for severe acute respiratory distress syndrome, documented in emergency room patients from vaping, where lungs can collapse and the need for mechanical ventilations has become necessary. Perhaps you're unaware of the study published in American Journal of Psychiatry, which followed 7,600 individuals for an average of 84 months and found heavy marijuana users had a cumulative risk for progression to schizophrenia of 11.3% and a 500% increased risk of psychosis. The historical evidence is there for those willing to look at it. Look at how this industry will flood your city with marijuana advertising, promotional gimmicks, and in-your-face marijuana normalization while targeting the most vulnerable among you, youth, minorities, the uninformed, the misinformed. It will change your city and not for the better. With a glut of marijuana product supplies for years to come, Vista doesn't need to contribute to it. Thank you.
Luke Smith, followed by Aram Yetarian, followed by Ron Martino.
Good evening, Mayor Ritter and Council. My name is Luke Smith, and I'm a resident of Vista and an 11th grader at Guajomí Park Academy. I've been with the North San Diego Young Marines a majority of my life, and it has helped me learn to lead and stay true to our slogan, closing the gate on drugs. While the city has been opening the gate, I feel it's my duty to share my perspective. Delivery of marijuana will make it more accessible to teens. Seeing advertisement and things promoting marijuana deliveries will make it seem normal for young people, and seeing it constantly around town will increase risky and dangerous behaviors. We wear these red cords 365 days a year to show our commitment to being drug-free, and I will continue to wear mine. And I hope that you can remember the youth and what your impact your decision makes on all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Iram Yatirian, followed by Ron Martino, followed by William, looks like Perno.
My name is Aram Yatirian. I own a Rhinos boxing gym, and I got so many youths from schools, from all the neighborhood schools, and just 500 feet against my street, against my gym, they're opening marijuana stores or dispensary. And I talked to state, said that can't happen. And I called so many people in the city. They said, we don't know you got youth. I said, I got pictures of Vista Mayor in my gym 10 years ago. You've been in my gym. I got pictures by you, by Oceanside Mayor, Jim Wood. They're all in my gym. I serve city of Vista to keep the kids up from the school, to make the kids happy. I got mothers and mothers in my gym. They pray all day long because I keep their kids up from the street. Suddenly, I hear they're opening marijuana or dispensary next door to my gym, front of my face. And also next door to me, there is 57 units, new houses getting built. Let's say if you have every house one kid, they have one kid, that's 57 kids more. I got over 120 kids just in my property, the one I'm serving myself with my own wife, with not making money, serving the city, and now suddenly I have a marijuana. I mean, I can't believe this. I talked to city, I talked to state, I got email from state. They said, no way, can't happen. I got email by state, said something wrong someplace. You better go to the meeting and let them know and hand them this from the state of California. That means, how can they open marijuana dispensary from my gym, the one I'm helping kids, supporting city, supporting people up from the street? How that can happen? I'm a 74-year-old man, work for free to support the schools.
Maybe we can have somebody from our staff talk to you after the meeting. They can meet with you and look at your paperwork. But
please, that's what I need.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Because I got lots of kids, lots of family, they appreciate what I'm doing for them.
Okay, Ron Martino, followed by William Perno, followed by Alicia Griffiths. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, I'm Ron Martino. I'm a teacher for 31 years in Oceanside Unified. I'm assistant principal, teacher of math and science. I work for migrant education for the county. I also, on my spare time, I go to the gym, the Rhino Gym, to work out, to get myself into some shape. My students go to Rhino Gym. Their parents are there. A lot of them are Spanish speaking. I work with them. And to have a dispensary across the street at 1406 South Santa Fe is pretty dangerous for my students. As assistant principal, I've seen many students come in with marijuana, which their parents had in their rooms or in their drawers. And this caused a lot of problems with suspensions, expulsions. Kids were selling it. I'm just concerned as an educator and also as a person, a patron of a gym that keeps kids in shape and keeps them off the streets, that you're opening a dispensary at 1406 South Santa Fe. That seems ridiculous. And I tell you, I wouldn't want that for my young kids to come to the gym. I want more kids coming to that gym. That gym makes a big difference. And these kids who I've seen in my school, their attitudes have changed. They feel more responsible. They feel good about themselves. He makes a big difference in this community. I would hope that you'd help us out by moving it someplace else. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. William Perno, followed by Alicia Griffiths, followed by Kelly McCormick.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is William Perno. I'm a prevention specialist, and I work in the city of San Diego. So I was asked to come here tonight to just kind of share some information with you of what's happening with the city of San Diego, where recreational sales of marijuana are allowed, along with vehicle deliveries. So my first question to you, and maybe some thoughts for staff, is who do you have in mind for regulating these businesses? Law enforcement, code enforcement, or someone else? Will the regulating entity be able to work outside of normal business hours and on weekends, like law enforcement, who are already regulating alcohol and tobacco in the city? Will they do proactive compliance checks, or will it be reactive and complaint-driven only? Will they have adequate resources to do compliance checks and enforcement if needed? How will residents and customers be able to know whether or not the storefront is a city permitted business or a black market illegal business. Just because it's there doesn't mean it's legal, and sometimes your citizens may think that if there's an operating storefront that it is a legal business when it's not. Will there be any local advertising restrictions in addition to state laws? For the deliveries, can a city licensed business subcontract that to a third party who's not necessarily regulated by your city or the state? For questions for businesses who are not licensed by the State Bureau of Cannabis Control, for marijuana vehicle delivery sales made through Puffy, Weedmaps, Ease, etc., will the city receive any tax revenue from those sales? Who has oversight of those businesses at the local level? They're not state or city licensed. Who will regulate them? How will you do compliance checks and enforcement on businesses not licensed by the city or the state? Can the city restrict delivery sales to only city permitted marijuana businesses? And for other licensed businesses such as the City of San Diego, which is licensed retailers that are already advertising that they'll deliver to Vista, who's going to collect the sales tax there? Does it go to the city of Vista? Does it go to the City of San Diego? You have another entity, 1-800-Cannabis, advertising here that they're out of Sacramento. So again,
your time is up,
here,
sir.
Who does that? I have some documents I'll share with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Alicia Griffiths, followed by Kelly McCormick, followed by Chad Spinks.
Hi, good evening, City Council members. My name is Alicia Griffiths, and I'm a registered nurse that works here in the City of Vista. I understand the city is looking tonight at the marijuana testing facilities, the deliveries, and the marijuana manufacturing facilities. There's no downside to the marijuana testing facilities because there currently are none in the county and very few in the state of California. And adding more pot traveling around the City of Vista without any way to authenticate it sounds awful to me. I want to address the council's consideration of the manufacturing facilities because I feel like it is premature to make a decision. I wonder, as many of the others who have spoken tonight, who in the City of Vista is going to run around and assure that all of the pot manufactured here, such as the vaping cartridges and other dangerous concentrates, are only going to show up in the Medipot stores or on the shelf of a recreational pot store marked for certified patients only. Who's going to make sure that it's not diverted to illegal and unauthorized uses? Does the city have the personnel for that? Who's going to pay for it? Who's going to regulate it? We know the state is not going to do it because they have not hired enough enforcement personnel as it is to date. There should be no consideration of a permitting process for a pot facility until a testing facility is permitted and open out of respect for the safe and healthy of the citizens of Vista, especially since this issue is supposed to be about vulnerable Medipot patients. I am concerned that the pot facilities enable tons of marijuana to enter the marketplace, a marketplace that by all indications is already saturated, and then diverted out of state or diverted out of the country, obviously both of which are illegal. Again, do we have the law enforcement here in Vista, mechanisms, the funding, the personnel to counteract this? Please understand marijuana is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it only benefits those who are selling the drugs. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly McCormick, followed by Chad Spinks, followed by John Jesse.
Good evening, I'm Kelly McCormick. I'm the parent of 2 teenagers and a public health educator. Over the past month, I've been relaying information to parents, students, and school staff about the more than 200 serious lung damage incidents linked to the use of e-cigarettes. Many of the victims were teens and young adults who were vaping marijuana concentrates. Among the cases is one death, a teen who spent 10 days on a ventilator, and another with a collapsed lung. According to numerous media reports, there are likely more cases to come, but since marijuana concentrates are not regulated by any federal agency, there's no central channel for reporting the adverse health events. It's important you're aware of this because if you allow marijuana manufacturing facilities in Vista, you will be supporting their #1 product, marijuana concentrates. Many have as much as 90% THC. There are numerous studies showing that high THC concentrates can lead to serious mental health problems, including paranoia, increased rates of psychosis, and schizophrenia. The problems are especially acute for those under age 25, as you've heard. With the disturbing results on marijuana vaping, ask yourselves if this is the kind of business you want to support. Is this the kind of product you want to encourage? At least it's good you're considering marijuana testing facilities, as there are currently none in all of San Diego County. Most of the pot on retail shelves is not tested because of the lack of adequate testing facilities statewide. Marijuana users are misled into thinking that all marijuana products are tested, when in reality, it's only a tiny fraction. Pot is still federally illegal and not regulated. State laws are still evolving. The track and trace system is not yet fully operational. The medical reports continue to pile up, and there's not a regulated marijuana banking industry. Now we are seeing the evidence.
Your time is up.
Thank you. So please think of public health and not profits first. Thank you.
Thank you. Chad Spinks, followed by John Jesse.
Hi, Council. Thank you. Beyond all the reefer madness, I just wanted to remind everybody that the voters did not vote on legalizing this for kids, and we voted for safe access, which I think is the real issue. And our city has an opportunity to really forge ahead in how we can implement a safe access for a community. Just on a personal note, I was diagnosed in April with stage 4 colon cancer, and having access to CBD, THC products has been really nice, like not having to worry about making a shady call somewhere, like that a number somebody gave me. And when I go to the dispensary, it's older people, family, like just normal people. It's not like some crazy thing. Like people are just want to have access to it, go home, be responsible. And I think it's our city's responsibility to teach responsible access. And, I understand families are concerned about their kids. I believe in accountability, and we need to be accountable for our neighbors and make sure that we're, taking care of each other and making sure that, everyone's chill. But that's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Chad. John Jesse?
Hello, Mayor and council members. Thank you for your time. I just want to thank you guys for implementing Measure Z and being very supportive of it. I know you guys weren't for marijuana to begin with, but people are just bashing it tonight so bad I had to get up here and speak. What happened in personal responsibility? The people that are getting marijuana that are children, it's happening within their families. But they all want to point the finger at the people that sell marijuana. Alcohol's 10 times worse than marijuana, and everybody's making such a big deal about it. I am Dr. Green RX. I am one of the 11, people that it's going to have a dispensary. And the last thing I want is for any kids to have marijuana, period. I know of no other person in the industry, and I've been in it for 20 years, that wants kids to have marijuana. That's just crazy. So let's look at personal responsibility. Let's look at our role models, our pastors, our teachers. Those are the ones that are going to teach the children that marijuana is not for kids. Let's get together and be supportive of each other as humans and personal choice. You can go buy all the alcohol you want, and you'll die if you drink too much, but you can't die from marijuana. And we shouldn't drive on it. We shouldn't give it to kids. Let's just wake up, people, seriously. And I'm across from the boxing gym, and I spent over $5,000 with my attorney doing due diligence, watching his business, seeing how many people coming out of there, and he doesn't have the majority that's kids per capita that the state considers no, or I would have never moved forward. And I'm $110,000 into that store. We're not going to put a fancy sign. We're not going to have any marijuana leaves. We're going to be very discreet, very mellow, and we're going to follow all the rules. And we welcome all of you to come into our store. We want to work hand in hand with you to be what it should be. I went to every school in Vista, and I'm supportive of you guys being in it and knowing what's going on. And please, do some due diligence. A lot of the facts people are putting up here are wrong. They're lies. They're not real. There is testing labs in San Diego. Please.
No, talk to us.
Thank you so much, people.
Okay. Thank you, John. No, this is a council meeting. It's not like a ball game or something, so no clapping, please. Okay, so that's all of our speakers. I will go with Councilmember Rigby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to say thank you to all of our speakers who came out here tonight to listen to this conversation, to listen to each other, to give us your opinions. I'm glad the young people are here tonight for this conversation because this is an important conversation for our community. Mr. Spinks, I'm very sad to hear your diagnosis. I wish you the very best in your recovery. I do want to say that going all the way back to 1983, I have had very dear friends who used marijuana for medical purposes to get them through cancer. And I know one woman in particular, her doctor, and I agree, said that that's probably what saved her life, was helping her to get through the treatments using marijuana. Now, in our country, when we need to get prescriptions, like for medicinal marijuana, our doctor writes a prescription for us, we go to the pharmacy, and it's fulfilled. Not that I'm a big fan of big pharma at all, but I really think that our federal government has failed the American people by not dealing with marijuana on the same level it does with other medications. And marijuana is not the first plant to be used for pharmaceutical purposes. A lot of our medications that are advertised on TV that your parents or your grandparents might take derive from plants and flowers. So why the federal government is dragging its feet through cement on this one is beyond me. And as it was stated earlier, marijuana is against the law on the federal level. Federal government has abandoned the states and has abandoned marijuana enforcement on any level, which leaves California as well as other states to fend for ourselves. The people voted in recreational marijuana with Prop 64 a long time ago. San Diego or Vista residents voted Measure Z, and we had someone who asked a question about why would we do this, and it's really important for me that the people of Vista understand that we, the city council, city staff, did not do this. Measure Z was put on the ballot and it was voted in favor by the people of Vista. So now we're in a position where we have to follow Measure Z and we have to do it thoughtfully, carefully, and in the best way that we can for the citizens of Vista. Now, I do believe in the medicinal benefits of marijuana, as I already said, but there are also some serious complications and implications with using marijuana if it's not for medicinal purposes. One of the speakers commented about a Sandag report. I represent the city at Sandag on public safety, and we had a report by Dr. Cynthia Burke on marijuana, and this was just maybe 1 or 2 meetings ago, and it was such a powerful report with hardcore data that I actually asked Dr. Burke to come and present it to a city council meeting here in Vista, and we're working out that schedule. 100%, every single solitary person who is using hardcore drugs like cocaine, methamphetamine, heroin, whatever other ones there are, every single one of them started with the gateway drug of marijuana. Now, that's not to say that everybody that uses marijuana goes on to cocaine, meth, or heroin, but every single person on a hardcore drug started with marijuana. And that's pretty terrifying as a parent for me, as someone in our community, and I'm looking out at so many beautiful young people, and that's a terrifying thought for me. And you hear people in the industry who say that marijuana is not addicting. I disagree with that, absolutely disagree with that. I think it can have addictive properties, and that's how people end up going higher and higher and higher. But there is nothing we can do to stop the implementation of Measure Z, and that's what we're here tonight to talk about. And I do think that personal responsibility is a thing, It's very important. It's very important for people to decide where they want to be in life, where they want to go in life, what their vision in life is. And that doesn't mean that when you're 10, you have a vision for yourself at 50 and that's where you go. Sometimes you never know what road you're going to take or what turns in the road appear for you. Things change, but your vision and your core value of who you are as a person usually does not. And it's important that you remember that. And it's been brought up in conversations, because this, I think, is our third time talking about this here on the council level. But we talk about vaping because some of the concern is that young people are vaping and some of the cartridges can be made for vaping. The vaping people will tell you there's no harm in vaping. Well, we've known for years now that that's not true. Vaping can actually cause mold in your lungs. And yesterday it was reported on the national news that we have our first identified death caused from vaping because of the infections that hurt his lungs from vaping. So there are a lot of things that are being thrown out at our community and at our society that we're being told is normal. It's okay, just go along with it. And we're finding out years later, and those of us who are old enough that we've been through this cycle with things before, it's not true. And right now we have an opportunity to stop and look at what we're doing and how we're doing it. And I think as a council member, it is incumbent upon the five of us to make sure that we do this thoughtfully and carefully and slowly. I don't want to jump into this with both feet. I don't want to go over that cliff only to find out in 5 or 10 or 20 years that it was all wrong. And that it was the worst thing that we did for our community. And it was the worst thing that we did for our young people. So with that, I'm going to go back to the question I had for you, Ms. Zimmerman, in the beginning. And it was also talked about by a couple of our speakers, that I have talked to and met with some of the people who are in the cannabis industry, and some of them are very excited to go legit. They want to pay taxes. I've never heard anybody outside of the pot industry tell me they wanted to pay taxes, but some of them actually use those words out loud in that order. Several of them said, no, I've been on the black market 20 years. I make $1 million in a good weekend, cash. I'm staying in the dark. I don't want anything to do with you and your regulation or anything. We know that we have illegal pot shops in Vista. It's been whack-a-mole here for as long as I can remember. Does anybody here know what whack-a-mole is? You're probably too young. Once you hit it down, another one pops up someplace else. That's what we're dealing with. So I see here the state requires annual site inspections. And I don't know if this is a question for you or if it's a question for our city attorney, Mr. Piper, but as a city, and I'm taking a page out of California's handbook here, because the federal government says one thing and the state says, oh, we're going to do more. So the state says annual visits. I'd like to do more. Can we ask for or require, I'd like to require, not ask for, I want to require semi-annual or quarterly inspections. Is that something we can do?
Councilwoman Rigby, this annual inspection was a staff recommendation. I don't believe it's a requirement of the state.
Okay.
The state does annual licensing renewals, and so they do the due diligence checks. I do not know if they do physical site visits.
Okay.
So those identified bullet points are the staff recommendations on top of state regulation. So if the city council desires a different schedule, then we would do our best to implement that. With the labs, we were not recommending any special use permit. It may require a use permit to add additional conditions like that, but with the ones that would have any of the uses that would have a special use permit, we could do that.
I would like to see us, I'd like to see us start quarterly, because I know we have a lot of bad actors in town, and I would really like to. Now, I'm for business. I want to make business as easy as possible in Vista. We want our businesses to thrive and to flourish. So I'm going out on a limb with this one, saying that I want to make it as difficult as possible to do business in my city if they're bad actors. I want to make sure that we get rid of the bad actors right off the bat. So I'd like to ask for quarterly.
I would also like to clarify that this is not a requirement that is involved in Measure Z. These would be requirements on anything in addition to Measure Z that the City Council desires us to come back with. Measure Z does not require site inspections.
Okay. So for what you have on the screen currently under consideration, testing, I believe, yes, we should do testing. I think testing is important. If this is something we are going to be dealing with in our community, we need to make sure that it is, I don't know how to say it, the best, make it the best it can be. I don't want to say that about pot. But we also know that there is some pot out there that is contaminated with different things and is harmful, and it's proving to be causing medical issues for people who are using it. So I think testing is important. Manufacturing, I'm just going to go with a straight across the board no on manufacturing. I don't want Vista to be the mecca for pot manufacturing of all the things you can derive from it. Delivery is a very difficult one because, as it's been reported in the news, at SANDAG public safety meetings, and in the video that we saw, you really can't monitor delivery, even if it's for medicinal purposes. But I understand how sometimes people in certain conditions need to have it delivered because they're not physically able to go get it. So I will reserve any discussion on that until I hear from my colleagues. I'm not sure where I'm going with delivery. In distribution, I'm going to go on a no. I'm a hard no on distribution and manufacturing. As I said earlier, I'd like to take these steps slowly for our community. I want to make sure that we get it right as we can get with this topic in our community, because I still don't think it's right. I don't think that we should be doing this, but the voters have spoken. And the only way to undo this, I'm going to say it out loud. People have asked. I've had people call me, talk to me on the street, how do we get rid of Measure Z? It was a vote of the people. It has to be a vote of the people to get rid of it. So if that's really where you want to go, you have some work cut out for you. So I think that's where I wanted to go. And you had said something about age 25. Was that a question, not for one of these? No?
I don't believe I brought up age 25. I believe one of the speakers mentioned it as a brain development critical factor, but no, I didn't mention it.
Okay. Then my only comment is for whatever facilities that we have control over, I would like to see us inspect them quarterly. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Contreras.
Thank you, Councilmember Rigby, for your thoughts and really looking into it. I would support more inspection, 100%. I would like to see what the cost to staff. We only have so many staff members, so they can't all be out inspecting, all 11. So I just want to see if that's feasible.
Once again, the Measure Z is not on the table here outside of the delivery. Site inspections of Measure Z are not in that. There's nothing that requires a Measure Z site inspection. So when we talk about what we could implement in terms of annual, quarterly, weekly inspections, that would be any business and land use that the City Council desires to allow, and we would put that in as a condition of their special use permit. So in the scenario that we have in front of you, you would be however many testing facilities came into fruition, and the staff recommendation for both manufacturing and distribution is a maximum of 2, so a total of 4 facilities, unless the City Council desired to change that number. So we're not looking at huge numbers of inspections, and part of the process, if we get direction to come back with any of these, will be to discuss any of the permitting fees and anything that would be above our normal uses, because this is a new and different use. So we would come back with an application fee cost that would cover those types of things.
So we're talking about testing. Well, if the council were to move forward with the majority for testing, manufacturing, distribution, delivery, are you saying that it would be testing, manufacturing, and distribution, but we would not be able to check delivery?
We would likely be able to check delivery because that's in addition to Measure Z.
So
while we're recommending
even if
it
that
be allowed-
delivery is coming from one of the 11 dispensaries, so is there a difference between inspecting the dispensary that does not have delivery or does not do delivery versus, how do you delineate that? How can you say, here are 11 dispensaries, they're all allowed to do delivery, but we're only going to inspect the vehicles? Or I need some more clarification on that.
What we would try and do is set up a process whereby if a Measure Z approved dispensary also wanted to get the permit that allowed for delivery in Vista, which is currently not allowed, that we could potentially add some special components on it. Maybe it could be the on-site inspection of the business. I don't know legally if we could do that. We could, and I don't know that we would probably need to discuss that with an outside counsel, because this is all such brand new information. We could likely add additional inspection requirements for the delivery component of the business, though.
Okay. Yeah, because I would like to figure out a way to get into the 11 dispensaries if they are going to be doing delivery, if that's a method for us to have some type of inspection. Obviously, we have to look at the legality of it, but if that's a way for the city to be able to go in and inspect and make sure, all the I's are dotted, I would like to move forward in that direction. And I want to preface what I'm going to be saying in a little bit with the fact that the prohibition of cannabis and the hardline direction that the previous council took to side with individuals and organizations that are taking a hardline approach to it is exactly the reason that we're here discussing Measure Z and not a countermeasure that was done in a thoughtful way with unambiguous language that had a social equity clause in it where we could say, X amount of revenue that we receive, we want to put it into youth development programs, prevention programs. So I just want to say that was very short-sighted, and that's why we're here, and we cannot continue the discussion on prohibition of cannabis. We know that it has been detrimental to certain communities. Just here, the community I represent in District 1, the war on drugs has been detrimental to our community. And so ending that prohibition makes sense. Prop 64, the data that was extrapolated from that you can extrapolate, shows that Vista was in favor, right, of Prop 64. Previous council allocated about $35,000 for a survey to survey Vistans to see whether or not they were supportive of a retail medical business. And I believe that was over 70% of the responses were somewhat likely to very likely. And then Measure Z passed, and we're talking about 3 measures that were put on the ballot at the same time, which is very confusing to the voters. And so the fact that we have 3 examples of the will of our voters here in Vista, we cannot deny that we need to move forward with a comprehensive regulatory framework that allows us to move past prohibition and to start looking at what we can do in our city to help facilitate safe access, right? And like it was said before, none of us up here, the voters themselves, no one is saying that we want children to access cannabis. That has never been a point that the council has made. It's not anywhere in Measure Z. So I just want to preface my following remarks with just setting the background of this issue. One last thing that I want to say is that we are actually, as a city, balancing our budget on cannabis dollars right now, which currently we have 0 dispensaries open. If I'm not mistaken, for year 19 through 20, we're looking at conservative estimate of about $250,000. For year 20 through 21, a significant amount at a conservative estimate of $1.3 million. Like I said, if we would have had more forward-thinking leadership in the past, we could have crafted some kind of social equity in a countermeasure, and I'm sure Vistans would have approved that by a majority. So unfortunately, we can't go back. I was hoping to have those cannabis dollars used for preventative programs, for youth development programs, but it's not the direction that we're able to go. So that's the background that I wanted to provide the public and just be on record with that. I am all in favor of testing. We absolutely need to test cannabis. As speakers have stated before, there are real dire health consequences that can happen when someone thinks that they're accessing something that's safe, that's toxin-free, that's not grown with certain pesticides or herbicides or fungicides that are considered harmful. That's very important. When it comes to manufacturing, it was stated in the previous discussion that we had on this item that as soon as you do anything to the cannabis crop, that is considered manufacturing. So I am in favor of non-volatile light manufacturing, especially if it's something as simple as curating the cannabis flower. I am in favor of distribution. I feel that goes hand in hand with manufacturing. And when it comes to delivery, we are really going to set our legal businesses very behind if we say that they cannot do delivery, but someone can come from Oceanside and deliver to, as many people as they want. So we have to keep all of this in mind when we're looking at which direction we want to move forward with these types of ancillary businesses. So those are my thoughts on it. I would like to hear a little bit more from my colleagues, but I cannot state it enough that the war on drugs has been detrimental to my community. And I'm so glad that we are finally moving forward in a comprehensive direction and that we're able to stand, on different parts of the spectrum on this issue and have a very thoughtful conversation about how we're going to keep individuals safe and have real safe access for those who are going to utilize this for medical needs, or, we're not discussing recreational. I think we really need to focus on Measure Z and the medical aspect of it. But that's pretty much all I have to say. And I would love to hear from the rest of my colleagues.
Councilmember Green.
All right, I heard that there were special licenses required for manufacturing and distribution. I didn't write down that there is a special license required for testing. Is there a special license required for that?
Yes, there's a state license for each of these uses.
For each of them, okay. Definitely good with testing. Obviously, that's something that we definitely need to do. As far as manufacturing, I'm good with that too, just the Type 6 license so that it's not the heavy production per se. Once again, curation of the flower, I guess, is fine. As far as the distribution, the Type 11 license, I would obviously be okay with as well. And when it comes to the manufacturing and having manufacturing and distribution in Vista, since we're allowing dispensaries to operate within our city, I feel like having the product and distribution available in our city as well is a benefit to our city and a benefit to the business industry as a whole, that everything is here for them. So I think manufacturing and distribution with the special use permits, and also I like the medical delivery as well, only for medical. Obviously, we can't do it for hybrid. But by allowing these 4 new uses, being able to implement a inspection policy that is quarterly is a fantastic idea that my council members brought up. So testing, manufacturing, distribution, a caveat to your special use permit is that quarterly we have our, whether it's code or building inspector, fire inspector on light duty, whatever it is, go into these businesses and make sure that they're abiding by the rules and regulations that we've set in place. And then for delivery, if there is, I didn't realize that there was no interior inspection caveat that was passed with Measure Z. I know there wasn't a whole lot of anything jurisdictionally passed with Measure Z, but I do believe that our medical marijuana businesses through Measure Z should be able to deliver, but I also believe that our medical marijuana facilities that are operating within our city should be able to be viewed by our city. So I would say if there is a way, which I believe there is since we're writing the policy, that we're going to add a special use permit for delivery, any dispensaries within our city that want to deliver medical marijuana legally will allow us to come and inspect their facility quarterly. And if they're all operating above board, doing what they're supposed to be doing, having what they're, supposed to have, that shouldn't be an issue for us to come inspect quarterly and allow you to deliver to our community as a medical marijuana retailer. So I think that with us giving a little bit, they should give a little bit, and I think the medical marijuana industry would be open to that. So, and if they don't want to allow us to inspect their facilities quarterly, we don't allow them to deliver their medical marijuana throughout the industry, and they can be losing that to other dispensaries or other delivery avenues that are outside of the city. So I would highly recommend that we add that to that delivery special use permit, and then that allows us to police those, facilities a little bit better and also make sure that they're serving the community that we want them to serve. So I think those are my thoughts on it, and I kindly thank you for your presentation.
Councilmember Rigby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think that's a great idea. So I would agree with that. But going back to the delivery, and it's for medicinal uses, and there is concern about it being dropped off for people who really aren't using it for medicinal or just dropping it through and giving it to anybody. Is there a way, and I don't know if there is, but I would like to ask for us to look into it, that if you are delivering a prescription, somebody has to sign for it, and it has to be somebody who has a registered card. Our cards are registered with some entity, correct?
Yes, and my understanding of the legal license permitted industry, both in on-site and delivery, is you have to show proof of an identification with your age. You have to show your medical card or your medical recommendation. Mm-hmm. You have to be at a residence. You can't be on a street corner at a shopping mall or anything like that. There are a lot of regulations in place to how the license permitted industry works. I couldn't speak to what was happening in the video. I don't know if that was through what program, but the way that the state has established their regulations, yes, there is a requirement for identification.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure on that. And then I do know that the state does require testing of pot. I've been in those conversations up in Sacramento. But my understanding at one of my last meetings, but that was earlier this year, is that the state's testing department's not up and running yet. Is that correct? Do you know?
I'm not completely familiar with the particulars, but I do know from presentations you and I have both been at, and just research that there are testing facilities that are testing state product that is used in this state. Whether or not all product on all retail shelves are tested, I can't speak to that. But there are testing facilities that are trying to be up and running, and most of them have provisional licenses through the state if they're still behind in the process, or are starting to issue the actual licenses, like we're seeing with some of our Measure Z businesses as well.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. You answered my questions.
Deputy Mayor.
What kinds of things would potentially be within the purview of the city to inspect? In other words, if you're a food inspector or a fire inspector and you go on to a business to inspect, you have a list of things that you're charged with ensuring compliance of. Maybe you don't know what these items would be right now, but if we're going to have quarterly inspections, I think a logical question would be, what's on the checklist? What things are we going to look for to ensure compliance with? I think that's a fair question. You have any thoughts?
On a baseline perspective, each of the licenses that are issued by the state come with a checklist of things that the business is purported to have done or proven or complied with to receive that license. So we could use that list to review and check and see if they're still doing the things that they said or were doing when they received their license. If the city council has any desire to add anything else to a special use permit in terms of a specific condition, then we would also check for that. But it'll be safety, packaging, where keeping the product in a separate room from the money. There's going to be all sorts of things that are required at the state level, and we would identify those and bring them back to you with the special use permit package when it's finalized.
Okay. A couple of thoughts first in general. Just responding kind of to the thoughts that Councilwoman Contreras shared. I think if we had passed a half measure, I think it would have it would have been 2 or 4 dispensaries. And I don't think, we have a measure that was crafted with our staff's advice. I would have been happier with 12% tax, but they said, for whatever reason, I've forgotten what the specific logic was, why they didn't think that would work. But something about the markets responding to it or something. At any rate, I don't think we would have been looking at a greater number of businesses or a greater quantity of revenue. I think as a mathematical, as my colleague to my left says, it's, what is it you say? It's not magic, it's math. So I don't know that I could necessarily agree that we've doomed the children of Vista by not having acted to legalize and having a segregated account. But we can agree to disagree on that. This is really tough because I agree with just about everything that most of the speakers had to say tonight, and including Councilwoman Contreras. I agree with much, not everything, but much of what you had to say. And I agree, and I liked the Young Marine, and I liked the North Coastal Prevention Coalition. The problem is we're all talking past one another. We're not speaking to the core of the substance of the issue, and my job is to decide the core of the substance of the issue. When we talk about the harm that marijuana is going to cause children, it is going to cause children harm. It is causing them harm now. But these products, they're going to be manufactured somewhere. They're going to be distributed. They're going to be delivered. So where I think I can find some agreement with Councilwoman Contreras is, I guess I mistakenly had the point of view. I mean, I was a teetotaler on this subject. I don't like marijuana. I've never used it. I don't have any desire to use it. I don't think it's good for people. I think it hurts people. There might be some medical uses that are good. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a pharmacologist. I'm not a pharmacist. I don't know anything about that, and I don't pretend to. It's not my point. You didn't elect me to tell you what drugs are good or effective. And if you thought that was my expertise, then you got something wrong. So I just try and not speak to those issues, but would point you to other people who are learned and expert in those subject matters. I'm fretting a lot more about the marijuana businesses on South Santa Fe and on Sycamore that are, I think like 6 of these businesses of the 11 are in the district that I represent. So, the people of 4th District got the lion's share and the brunt of Measure Z. And I don't know. All along I felt that people were with me and they were opposed to marijuana, but I haven't seen that. I haven't seen in any of the polling. I haven't seen it in the statewide prop. I haven't seen it in Measure Z. I have not seen majority opposition. I've seen just the opposite. And so, and quite frankly, we had President Obama who took a non-enforcement stance towards states that had decided to legalize. President Trump, when he was elected, through then Attorney General Sessions, seemed to indicate, hold on to your hats, we might change our minds. And then the president kind of unilaterally said, no, we're not going to change the status quo. So we now have two presidents who couldn't agree on much, but they both agreed. No, seriously, I mean, what you have and is a travesty when law is abandoned in practice, because that is the disintegration of the rule of law. And when you have the rule of law disintegrate, you have, instead of elected representatives, you have kings and potentates who are elected for periods of time and can dictate which laws will be enforced and which ones won't. And that's an absolute travesty. You know, the law should be enforced equally without regard for the enforcing authority's opinion of the law. But that being said, the federal government is not, in two successive administrations, both Democratic and Republican, is not moving forward to put the crackdown or to enforce the federal element of the law. I can only imagine that we are months or a short number of years away from reforms at the federal level, which are going to take a different opinion about the federal regulation of marijuana. But you know, I struggle with this so entirely because I've known people who, through their recreational use of marijuana, I'm just going to say it plainly, they became stupid. To all the young people in the room, you don't think it's going to hurt you? Meet somebody who smoked just a little bit too much of it and who can't carry a strain of thought for more than about 2 minutes at a time anymore, who's no longer coherent and lucid. You know, I mean, that seems funny if you use it, you enjoy it, yeah, it's not going to hurt me. But meet somebody who's in their 40s or 50s and who just is not clear of mind anymore. And you might start to see things a little bit differently when you've known some of those folks. So it absolutely has a detrimental impact on the minds of young people. And just like we have conducted a war on tobacco and its availability to young people, we're going to have to conduct a war on the availability of marijuana to young people. And I think that through our ability to inspect, we can maybe play a pivotal role in that here in our community. Obviously, we need to do testing. I'm not even for a 2 business limit on testing. Testing is something we all broadly agree on. I think we should have a higher limit on testing. Maybe we could
There's no recommended limit on testing.
There's no recommended limit. Okay, that's good. We all agree on that, then that's fine. Delivery, you know, Weed Maps, you can go there right now. There's literally an unlimited number of businesses that will deliver to your home at this exact moment. As I like to say during the Measure Z thing, why we didn't need brick and mortar locations is, you know, I'm sure there's 5 people deliver it to us here tonight while we sit here. You know, they might be a little sheepish when they walk in the back door, but I mean, there's a lot of people that are offering to deliver it. So, and there is no meaningful way. We cannot pull over, nor would the community want us to, with a drug dog and sniff every car that comes and goes in the city. So, I mean, again, when we talk about speaking past one another, we do sort of have to get into the reality of what meaningful efforts are available to the city to enforce. And we're not going to pull everybody over and sniff their cars. That's not real. We're not doing that. So we have no meaningful way other than what would be a dragnet for the sake of show alone. We would have no meaningful way to enforce delivery prohibition. Therefore, if we tell our Measure Z applicants that they can't deliver, they may have a greater they would have a greater onus to comply because they could lose their licensure under Measure Z. If I were one of them and I had one of these valuable licenses, I would probably prefer not to put myself in that peril. However, I've got all these folks who are illegally delivering, who are likely, as we saw in the video, not enforcing any good practice. And then we've got people who are investing hundreds of thousands into their businesses here who, you know, I'm a conservative and I'm a business guy, and I believe in supporting business because I think business creates economic prosperity for all of us in the community, creates jobs. And so, you know, I respect the maker economy that we have here in Vista, where we really created an economy that thrives on people that are creating something unique, you know. And so I can't see as where I would oppose the Measure Z applicants having the ability to deliver. Particularly, I mean, I like the inspection idea. My question was serious about what are we going to inspect, and I'm curious what the things are that we'll be able to inspect. We have a letter here in front of us from somebody that I don't know, from Adam, by the name of Yvette Smith. I don't know if she's with us this evening. Her company is Veda Chews, and they make a product. I don't know if it's a good product or a bad product. I'm not commenting on it, but it's a CBD chew, and they've written us a letter, said they'd like to be in business in the city of Vista to manufacture this product. I don't have a problem with that. I don't know why we would. I mean, it's a non-volatile thing. I think, and maybe this is not the person that's going to win one of these manufacturing licenses, but maybe they are. It's a non-THC product. Maybe they don't even need. I don't know. But the point is, there are going to be good manufacturers that are going to make products that are truly medically geared, and then there are going to be bad manufacturers that are going to make things that look like candy. We've been in the dispensaries when they've been shut down and seen what looked horrifyingly like a candy store, with very few items that were not targeted directly to children. There were brownies and candies. I mean, it was when you were a kid and you went into the candy store and everything's brightly colored. That was the whole thing. Everything in there was for kids. Everything in there was something that was candy. So, you know, you can't tell me that there aren't a lot of these people that are not manufacturing products to target children. If we have the ability to go in and inspect on a quarterly basis, and we've got some revenue attached from it, that, you know, then we can go in and we can look and make sure that they're not manufacturing goods that are brightly colored or with cartoon characters or, you know, candy type. You know, if somebody's making a chew for somebody who's got cancer diagnosis, I don't have a problem with that. So, I think we do have to meet this head on. And again, while I wasn't in full agreement, I was getting to a lot of agreement with Councilman Contreras, but I do agree. It's now time to meet this head on and responsibly regulate it and do it in a slow and limited way. So, you know, while it absolutely tears me apart, the effect that this drug is having on our community, and the impact that this business, in some cases, because some of the actors in this business are going to be great business people and they're going to bring great customers to Vista, but some of them are going to be bad and they're going to cause problems. I'm not entirely happy about it. So I fully represent my neighbors who are not pleased with all of this, but I think we got to get ahead of this. We got to get our hands around it and be smart about it. So, distribution. What's distribution? I mean, to me, that's somebody who has a warehouse who imports wholesale quantities of product, and they provide a point of distribution to sell to retailers. They have a relationship with retailers. New products come to the market through distributors. It's a needful business that supports the 11 businesses that are lawful here. I would think that we could do 2 of those as well as 2 of the manufacturing businesses. So, I mean, my thinking on this subject is not completely, it's evolving, as you can see. So maybe there's somebody out there that's got something to say that would convince me to vote no on final passage and stuff, but that's where I'm at and it's where I've been. It's, you know, I don't think it'll change. Sorry for taking up that much time, but I thought a lot of that was important. Maybe you did too, or maybe it was just a waste. I don't know.
It's important, and actually, you all have great points. Everybody, it was a good discussion that everybody had. We're going to take each one individually, probably vote each thing individually. I think that's what we want to do. But before we do that, I just want to say that I didn't support the marijuana industry, but I do believe that there's medicinal benefits, and so I support that part of it. I do worry about the kids, and the kids are getting a lot of them are getting the marijuana, and there's loopholes and ways people buy it and then pass it on to somebody else. So I'd like to know how we'll deal with the delivery outside of Vista. Is there any way we can deal, like you said, we can't check with every car that comes in with, so I don't know how we would deal if our dispensary is delivered, but how will we still deal with people from outside that are going to be doing that? And I don't know how to deal with that. So, but anyway, but I'm going to support the testing. I think that's an important thing. I think that we need to test for mold and the level of THC in there, and I also will support delivery for our 11 dispensaries. I think that's okay, and I'd love to be able to check them quarterly. I think that's important. I'm not sold on the manufacturing or the distribution. So I probably will not support those, but it sounds like we have the vote to do that anyway. So I'll let Allie go, and how do you want to do that?
Thank you, Mayor. If it's okay with you, I'll just briefly summarize the recommendation as I understand it, and then we'll look for a motion in a second on each of the 4 items individually.
Okay.
Beginning with testing, to allow the use in the business park specific plan, not to limit the number of businesses that would be allowed to operate, require they obviously obtain their state license, require quarterly site inspections, and then submittal of gross revenues proof, associated tax payments, and audit of gross revenues as authorized already under Vista Municipal Code Section 7.10.
Oh, so you want us to vote on that right after you tell us? Yes.
That's the staff recommendation,
Okay.
but I do need a motion in a second from
Okay. Councilmember Green.
I recommend we accept staff's recommendation in regards to testing.
Okay, do I have a second? Okay. Councilmember Contreras. So please cast your votes. That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Moving on to manufacturing, the staff recommendation would be to allow for a maximum of 2 Type 6 light manufacturers in the business park specific plan only with a special use permit, require they to be able to obtain the state license Type 6, which is a non-volatile license, and include the Type N for infusions and Type P for packaging licenses that are allowed with a Type 6. To require quarterly site inspections, and as authorized under Vista Municipal Code Section 7.10, quarterly submittal of proof of gross revenues and associated payments and audits.
Okay, do I have a motion? Deputy Mayor.
I have a question. Generally speaking, the non-volatile manufacturing processes, would that probably exclude the vaping? My guess is that the vape product is, you have to use some kind of a volatile chemical to break down.
I don't know, but I can bring back more detail on that. All of these will come back to you with all the formal land use documents, so we will have that before then.
I think that'd be something good to know. And also on the manufacturing question, if we're going to be in their business on a quarterly basis, then I think we could observe whether or not these items seem to be, and we need to create a list of regulations to say, Vista is not going to be a place where you can manufacture marijuana gummy bears or anything else that's brightly colored or overly sugary.
I don't know that we can regulate exactly what they're manufacturing or creating outside of the volatile versus non-volatile. We can look into that a little bit further. Similar to how that hybrid option would have been very difficult to enforce, a Type 6 license allows for all non-volatile manufacturing products, from as simple as taking the flour and putting it in a package to creating candies and chocolates. We would have to enforce that on our own, and it would be very difficult. And as our experts have already talked to us about, once you've opened the door to a portion of the license, there would probably be a legal battle to allow the full spectrum. So if the City Council does not want to allow for the spectrum of light manufacturing, I would recommend they don't allow it at all.
Well, I'd like to know the answer to that question. If we need to pursue it, then let's pursue it. Do we have the ability to enforce whatever? I've been reading up in my spare time on our land use powers and authorities. We have pretty broad police authority when it comes to land use. So, I mean, I'd like to know what the answer is to that question, because I would think that we could make it a condition of a permit, and we could revoke that permit for violation of those conditions.
It's legal. It's legally enforceable. It's significantly impractical, expensive, and potentially we could lose the battle because we've allowed for a state license, but only a portion of it. That's one of the, all of these licenses are set up for specific things. The state is not going to have our back if we only want to allow a portion of it.
I don't know. I learned about a thing called, what was it, sufficient but not necessary, or necessary but not sufficient. The license being necessary but not sufficient to satisfy the criteria that we set out. In other words, we can create other criteria. The license under the criteria that we create is one necessary criteria, but it's not sufficient to satisfy all of the criteria. If there's a legal principle there, then I'd like to move forward, and I'd like to ask the city attorney to follow up with me and let me know what the legal principle is, why we think that we would be unsuccessful in enforcing that, because I think it'd be a real win to include a prohibition on manufacturing things for kids. If somebody is manufacturing something that is geared towards adults, somebody who's got cancer, something that really, when we look at it, we know that we're seeing something that's not a bright colored object for a kid. I think we'd all feel a lot better about having something like that in our community than, something that's not. So all I'm asking for is the information, and I'm saying that I'm going to move forward on the information basis, and whether practicable or enforceable, I still think it should be included. A later council can make a decision about spending funds to enforce, but I appreciate the information. We can move forward with an eyes wide open basis, understanding that there may be some unenforceability, but I'd like a little bit more information about why we think it's unenforceable.
Councilmember Green.
And I just want to say that I support that with Deputy Mayor Franklin. I think that since we're issuing special use permits, the special use that we give them should be able to be dictated by the council. And I get the whole, hybrid license, but
the special use is specific to the land use control, not necessarily what they're permitted to do by the state. So we will look into that, bring more back to you when we bring back.
But all of their manufacturing will still have to be regulated by the packaging restraints, right? Not
correct.
Geared towards kids and all that stuff. So
whether or not it's a gummy bear, adults like gummy bears too, but does it need to be in a clear package? It's very obvious. I don't know, because the packaging and the products are supposed to not be attractive to children.
Okay. With that, I move that we accept staff's recommendation and moves forward with manufacturing and getting more information.
Do you have a second? Cast your votes. That motion passes 3-2.
Moving on to distribution, the staff recommendation would be to allow this use in the business park specific plan only with a special use permit. A maximum of 2 distribution businesses require that they obtain their state license, which is a type 11 in this case, require quarterly site inspections and quarterly submittal of proof of gross revenues, associated tax payments, and authorization of gross revenues audit as specified in Vista Municipal Code 7.10.
Okay, do I need a motion? Do we have a motion for distribution?
Oh.
Okay, Councilmember Green.
I move that we accept staff's recommendation in regards to distribution.
Second, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes.
This is also with a limit of 2 businesses.
That motion passes 3-2.
And the final item is delivery. We've discussed at length the recommendation to authorize the Measure Z retailers to be allowed to also deliver from their premise. We would request the additional regulations that were identified in the staff report, specifically about proof of employment, on-site parking requirements. We will look at and bring back most likely the opportunity to be able to inspect the interior of the business as well as inspection of the delivery. That will come back before you, either very clearly yes or no in a final review. There was one other thing I wanted to mention that we had talked about in the delivery component of the agenda report, and that is that the city will work with, if the city council would like us to move forward with this, the city will also work with other jurisdictions who have authorized retail and delivery to identify when those retailers are delivering in Vista and to go after the sales tax. So that's something we would also do, and we established that rate at 7% because that's our retail rate under Measure Z, even though Measure AA allowed for a different amount.
Okay, need a motion for somebody?
I move to accept staff's recommendation.
And a second?
I'll second.
Okay, cast your votes. That motion passes unanimously. Okay.
I just wanted to mention, thank you very much. We will be bringing back before you testing, manufacturing, distribution, and delivery as identified in this council direction. We will also be bringing back all of the other uses to establish a prohibition indefinitely as opposed to the moratorium. All of this will happen hopefully by November of this year.
Thank you. So, are we okay to keep going or need a break? Are we all good? Okay. Okay, so let's see. The next thing, our next discussion item is a proposed general plan amendment and zone change. What?
We had somebody ask for a break.
Do we have somebody ask for a break? Oh, okay. Okay. How about 5-minute break? So it's 7:35. We're gonna start at 7:40. Quickly. Go for it.
Sorry, I've been holding it.
Okay. I'm going to call the meeting back to order, so if everybody please take your seats.
If everybody could please take their seats, please.
Please take your seats. Where's my council? My council up here, please.
No, you need one more.
Need one more council person. They should put one, yeah. Okay. So the next thing on our agenda is our proposed general plan amendment and zone change at the northeast corner of East Vista Way and Hillside Terrace. Director John Conley is going to introduce the item.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a preliminary review of a proposal to change the general plan and zoning at 600 to 612 East Vista Way. The property owner has submitted a request to amend our general plan and change the zoning designation on a 1.2 acre parcel that's located at the corner of East Vista Way and Hillside Terrace, addressed as 600 to 612 East Vista Way. The proposed general plan amendment would modify the land use designation in the general plan from mixed use to commercial neighborhood, and the zone change that accompany it would modify the zoning designation from specific plan implementation, which implements the downtown specific plan, to commercial C1, our retail designation. These proposed amendments would be required to develop the site with a convenience store and gas station, which is the proposal that was submitted by the property owner. The location of the property is shown on the overhead. It's at the northeast corner of Hillside Terrace and East Vista Way, surrounded by commercial uses to the north, Wildwood Park and the fire station to the east, the middle school to the south, and residential and commercial uses to the west. The general plan and zoning designations are shown here. On the left is the general plan designation. The purple designation is a mixed use designation, allows both residential and commercial uses. On the right is a downtown specific plan, which is the zoning. The conceptual development plan that was submitted by the property owner includes a request to remove some of the existing uses on the site. There's a Chin's restaurant and a strip center that are currently on the property. The Chin's restaurant would be replaced with a convenience store and gas station with a fueling canopy that would be located to the north of the store, as shown here on the overhead. It's unknown whether the retail strip center in the back would remain, but this drawing that was provided by the owner shows it remaining. As you know, we bring all general plan and zone change requests before the council at the time of submittal before a formal application is accepted. These types of decisions are at the full discretion of the City Council with a formal recommendation by the Planning Commission at the time of final consideration. We're bringing this before you tonight to get your input on the application, to see if there is support to accept the application and process the request. No formal application has been received or submitted at this time, pending the Council's discussion and direction on this item. That completes my staff presentation. The applicant is also here with a short presentation to follow mine. Thank you.
Okay, I have several speakers. Do you want to do speakers first, or do you want Councilmember Contreras? Okay. Okay, we'll start with the applicant, Jamie Looney. Are you on?
Is that on? There we go.
There you go.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. I appreciate you hearing us out. I know that I've met with each and every one of you to discuss the the plan that we have on the table for 600 and 612 East Vista Way. We, the family members, the Delpy family, has been pursuing different options with what to do with the corner for a number of years, and this is the plan that they had come up with. I know that I'm kind of leading in with, I know that this has been discussed at length on social media, And I've reviewed all of those comments and concerns. And if given a reasonable amount of time, I'll go through this quickly and try and address a number of those points and comments that were made. For the sake of time, I'm going to go through this quickly. Sorry, the mic's not necessarily tall enough here. I'm going to go through this quickly. I know that you're familiar with where the site is and that it's on the corner of Hillside Terrace, East Vista Way, and at the corner of Civic Center. Mr. Conley went through the exact zoning requirements. Originally, the site was zoned as commercial. In 2010, I believe I pointed out it was rezoned to the specific plan and mixed use. So this property in 2010 was taken into the specific plan area. After talking with the family, none of them were necessarily aware of the implications of that plan. And so what we're asking today not only is to just change the zoning, but to change it back to what it originally was. There's a few photographs here if people in the audience aren't familiar with the site. The uses on the site right now are a sit-down restaurant. There are some hair salons, a donut shop, as well as a frame shop on the property. This gives you an idea of where it's located within the city. The surrounding zoning on the northeast side of the intersection, beyond the 600 and 612 address, is all C1 zoning. This property is the only property on that side of the street that actually was incorporated into the specific plan. And at the time that was done, it wasn't necessarily foreseen what those uses could or should be. Knowing that the C1 zoning, or knowing that the specific plan does allow for a number of different uses, the C1 zoning we feel is more appropriate for the type of uses on that street. Part of the review that the family has done is we've gone out to industry professionals to look at what would be more appropriate, as well as the different types of development, as well as other impacts that are coming into the area. The opportunity to enhance circulation by looking at putting a gas station on this corner has been analyzed, and we've put some slides together to kind of demonstrate how that would work. Sorry, I'm trying to go backwards here. The market area that we were looking at runs from Arcadia Avenue on the northeast end of town, all the way through to the 78 freeway. We've looked at the developments that are happening, coming in the coming months, as well as some of the developments that are almost complete, and the amount of impacts for residential are significant. What we've looked at is the way that the circulation patterns work on East Vista Way, coming in a southwesternly path through the city. All of the gas stations in the market, specifically number, I believe, 5, 7, and 12, they're all on the left. They're all on the left side of the street, which requires a left turn. That activates the traffic signals, which stops the flow of traffic going through that corridor. Oh, apologize, sorry about that. This graphic shows clearly where all of the left turn lanes would be, or where all the left turns would have to be activated to access the existing gas stations along the route. Each and every one of the gas stations would require that the flow of traffic going in the northeasterly path of travel would have to come to a complete halt in order for cars to turn left to go into those gas stations. What we're proposing is actually enhancing and improving the flow of traffic all along that corridor by giving individuals that are looking to stop for gas an opportunity to turn right into our station and right back out. This doesn't activate any type of signal, it doesn't stop any flows of traffic, and it actually keeps the traffic moving. While each and every one of the existing gas stations, as well as the pending gas station on the northeast end of the area that we assessed, it's my understanding there's another gas station coming in, a Chevron. Through the entire corridor, our gas station would actually enhance the ability for cars to move freely through here without activating all of the signals. We've identified a number of different improvements that would be required. We know that there would be a median, the median on the East Vista Way area would need to be improved to avoid unsafe crossings. We recognize that the crosswalks at that intersection would have to be reviewed for safety and improvements. And we recognize that there would need to be a right turn lane added to the Hillside Terrace Street to improve traffic circulation and coming out of the station in a southerly direction. This graphic kind of shows the areas where we identify that there would need to be improvements. The fencing that I'm talking about would be very similar to the graphic that's up on the screen. That's the same type of fencing that was put in to protect people from crossing illegally and unsafely on Santa Fe. We've done a created graphic on the bottom right-hand corner showing how a right turn lane would need to be added into the Hillside Terrace area in order to make that right turn back into the flow of traffic on East Vista Way going south. Right now, the current status of the property is that we're exploring long-term. I'm sorry, we have an expiring long-term major tenant, which is Chin's. The property owners have been in a business relationship with Chin's for over 20 years. They know them very well. This is the first time in 20 years that they've had an opportunity where Chin's doesn't have an option in order to renew with them, and for the property owners to explore other options for their property to get highest and best use. The other leases on the property are short-term, and they are small tenants. The property is aging. It has dated landscaping and architecture, and the property owners are looking for ways to capitalize those improvements in order to compete with the neighboring properties that are developing alongside them. Things that we know that we're in a highly visible area, or highly visible and developing area, and it's in high demand. Unfortunately, the property's condition and the way that it's configured doesn't necessarily bring nationally recognized tenants that are going to bring the development dollars necessary for the family to improve the property so it can be competitive. We know that it's on a well-located signalized intersection, and we've talked to regional and national players that would have interest in bringing money alongside the owners to improve the properties and bring the improvements to acceptable standards. And the owners are looking to capitalize on this opportunity. There's a business relationship with leases that runs long-term. The commitment that this family's had to the Chin's restaurant has been 10 years at a time. The Delpy family owns this property. They're just looking at ways that they can continue to utilize it as an investment property. These are examples of other regional development. These are they have a much higher. They're much more improved. They're much more appealing, and this is the kind of properties that we want to compete against. So right now, the Delpy family is asking if you would consider changing the zoning back to C1 commercial to allow for a convenience store and fuel station to provide questions and feedback which will allow them to pursue improvements to change their property, which would allow it in the future. With that, I open it up for questions.
Do you want questions now, or do you want to hear from the speakers? And we also have Jackie Cotton. Does she want to speak? She's another applicant.
Yeah, she's with the family.
Yeah. Does she want to speak? She filled out a card here. Where's Jackie? Hi.
Other size.
Okay.
Good evening, City Council members and the Honorable.
Talk right in the microphone so they can hear you really good. Yeah, bring it down. There you go.
Mayor Ritter.
That's good.
I represent just one of our family business members that has owned the East Vista Way Center for over 40 years. We all tend to be on the slow growth side of the pendulum, and we love nothing better than to go back to the small town Vista where we grew up. We have great pictures of Jules and Maria Delpy, my grandparents, going down East Vista Way in their horse and buggy in the late 1800s. Growing up in Vista was an absolutely ideal childhood, and my kids and grandkids continue to live in this town. So please know that any plans we are exploring are only to improve this town that we love. Basically, we have a piece of property, an investment, and would like to know what our options are as the property owners that will be beneficial for all involved. I went through Beaumont School, Lincoln Junior High on this very spot, and spent my first years at Vista High, which was the Vista Magnet School. And this is also my 29th year being a school nurse in the Vista District. Beaumont is my favorite school, and Mr. Green was our fantastic PTA president there. Over 50 of that school's families live right behind the center, up on the Hillside Terrace and Franklin Lane vicinities. I've done multiple home visits for various problems and conditions up there, so I think I know the area pretty well. I see so many of our families walking miles to get groceries from Bonds, Northgate Market, and Albertsons. Those with access to a car sometimes can't bring their kids to school or even pick them up when they're sick because the car is at the workplace of one of the several adults who cohabit the home. I know for sure that having a little neighborhood store from which to purchase eggs, their heavy gallons of milk, and maybe gas would be very welcome there. The Vista Magnet students would have somewhere to go for snacks after school. We don't know the best option for this land, but that's just one concept that we have. We're approached daily by developers who want to buy that land, and their main focus is to put apartments up there. So we're not interested in that at all, and we definitely don't want any pot shops in there, which is pretty much the people that are looking to rent our space. We're truly interested in how to supply infrastructure and services needed to support the increased community of approximately 2,000 dwelling units that have gone in recently in Vista, and to relieve some of the traffic congestion. On another note, we have probably 20 to 30 cars parked in the Chin Center at night, and they mostly belong to the doubled-up families who live behind the center. We paid $35,000 to have that parking lot paved recently, so unfortunately, we're going to begin ticketing and towing them. They also change their oil, and they work on their cars there at night, and it's just too much wear and tear on the asphalt. There seems to be a lot of unwanted activity going on there overnight also. The trash and bodily waste from the vagrants sleeping there and carrying on their drug deals on the premises is awful. I know a lot of you oppose any change to the complex and are probably totally unaware of these property management issues. Having a business there with extended business hours and lighting can only increase the safety of that neighborhood and the children that live up there on the hills behind it. Furthermore, our parking lot is used as a pickup and drop-off place for kids at Vista Magnet. The parents have figured out that it's really simple to go in one way and out the other way, and it's much easier for the kids to walk across the the crosswalk there by the light next to the city-owned Donnell's Podiatry building than to battle that school parking lot. Maybe we can even explore a coordinating business that the city might want to put on that corner across the street from our center to serve our neighborhood families even more. Like many of you, our family is especially concerned for the tenants we love and appreciate in the complex. We've supported them through personal and professional ups and downs for decades. Jack and Sharon from Froggies have been with us for 35 years. Dr. Garner and his staff who are here tonight, they've been with us for 37 years. The AA folks for 33 years. The hair salon, 27 years. And Chin's for 20 years. So over the years, recessions and lots of personal, family, and health reasons have made their ability to pay inconsistent for their rent. We've worked with each of them to get through their challenges. Several of these businesses may not still be in business if we didn't respect and try to help them. And I think they'll be the first to tell you that we've hardly ever raised their rent, and their rent is probably 3 times less than the going rate in a community with approximately 25% storefront vacancy rate. We have been and will continue to do what we can to support their prosperity and business plans while exploring a way to enhance the busiest traffic corner in Vista and research the best use of the land. Requesting a zone change back to the property's original C1 zoning will allow us to do this. And eventually, for some of the tenants, whenever anything gets done, it may fit in well with their retirement plans, because we're all about the same age. My grandparents were instrumental in starting the first school in Vista, the first post office, planting the first avocado trees, getting St. Francis Church going, as well as the VID. Jules and Maria were, in fact, inducted into the City of Vista Hall of Fame for their contributions to Vista, and we're very proud of that. My cousin Janice Clefane was the Vista Historical Society's past president. So our family is very committed to working with the community to improve the quality of life for all Vistans. We want it to be a better place to reside and work. So in closing, we look forward to your ideas, especially, and your support. We're basically asking that our commercial zoning be rightfully returned to us so that we can explore lots of ideas related to improving the appearance of our corner, enhancing the traffic flow in the downtown area, maybe providing an easy in, easy out source of fuel for those traveling westbound on Vista Way, and to assist our family in beautifying the thriving downtown parcel that we've loved and strived to maintain for 40 years. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, we have several speakers here. We'll start with Laura Harris, followed by Arthur Harris, followed by Susan Tully.
Good evening, council members. My name is Laura Harris, and I live in Vista. Thank you for the opportunity to express my views on this item, the proposed general plan amendment and zone change. I am a retired teacher of Vista Unified I taught for them for 35 years and have been a resident for the last 10. Over that time span, I have seen many changes in Vista, both good and bad. I have seen the traffic go from bad to worse on East Vista Way. With the addition of Sprouts, Delpy's Corner, and the new development behind the Jack in the Box, we're adding to an already overcrowded thoroughfare. The first is my concerns is that of more cars to an already overcrowded street. The second of my concerns is that of the student safety crossing at that intersection going to Vista Magnet Middle School. And my last concern, and the one closest to my heart, is that you would even consider tearing down one of Vista's most beloved landmarks, Chin's Szechuan cuisine. For 20 years or more, Chin's has provided the community of Vista with its excellent food, wonderful atmosphere, and warm, welcoming service. Yes, there are other restaurants like Chin's in Vista, but they don't even compare to what Chin's has to offer the community, in my opinion. The thought of having to leave Vista to go find another restaurant like Chin's certainly doesn't appeal to me. I'd rather stay local and spend my money there. Several of you stated that you didn't like the thought of businesses leaving Vista. With that in mind, why are we even considering the shutting down of a very successful, beloved business in Vista in exchange for a gas station and convenience store? One of the City Council's goals is continue to decrease blight and improve the city's image.
Your time is up, ma'am.
How does this improve the city's image?
Thank you. Arthur Harris, followed by Susan Tully, followed by Melody Boer.
Mayor, City Council, hi. I've only been here about 2 years in Vista, and it's a fascinating town. It's no little town anymore. I just found out you've got over 100,000 people here now, so we're pretty much a city. And I've only been here 2 years, but I like Vista. I like all the things about it. I can go out to the beach in just a few minutes, and I can go anywhere I want to. It's fine. But I can't find a lot of evening dinner restaurants to take my girlfriend to. And you may laugh at this, and you may think but it's the truth. I mean, there's lots of breakfast restaurants and inexpensive places to go. And we're loaded with them. They're on every street. But if I want to take any of you out to dinner and impress you, am I taking you to McDonald's? I don't think so. And you have Chow's. You have a nice restaurant at Chow's. It's Italian food. There is no better Chinese food anywhere in this area than Chin's. Nobody can compare to it. Nobody. I mean, we've got restaurants that run class 2. Chin's is a 4-star facility. And you're talking about tearing down or getting rid of a 4-star facility that people have used for years. And I never feel bad about taking my girlfriend there because she likes Chin's. If I lose Chin's, I have to go to Encinitas to get anywhere that Chinese food is worthy. It's not just the food. It's a matter of people have an affinity to something they're used to, and they've been going into it for years. Can you replace it, please? Are they giving Chin's another place to go
so
they can pull in? Okay, bye now.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Melody Boer, followed by Greg Barnacle, followed by one more. Oh, Susan. Oh, I'm sorry. Susan, sorry, Susan.
That's okay. Good
Followed
evening,
by
everybody.
Melody, followed by Greg Barnacle. Okay.
Good evening. I'm relatively new to Vista. I bought a house here in District 1 just over a year ago, and I see just all kinds of wonderful opportunity in the way Vista can develop. I can think of a lot of things in between what's being suggested that would not make it a commercial zoning. There's a reason you changed it from commercial, right? So to pretend that the traffic would be better, that the flow would be better with creating a snarl there with one more gas station and one more convenience store, we have plenty of those businesses in Vista. That being said, I think that there could be some great ideas that the Delphi family would be very happy with. I hear your love for the area and the care that you have for wanting to develop.
So you need to talk to us.
For wanting to develop in a meaningful way for this area. And I think that we could also come up with some ideas that would be great for the city in fiscally. Okay, so I do understand the appeal and fiscal need of allowing major retailers to invest in our neighborhood, but I ask you to consider, please, these two things regarding this particular project. Has the city considered the need for another gas station in Vista? Is there pent-up demand for one? I've looked for some sort of guidance on what is an appropriate number of gas stations for a given neighborhood, either per capita or per mile, and have found nothing. So I'm left with anecdotal commentary that I have never seen anybody waiting in line to use a gas station in my neighborhood, and I live just a block and a half away. I bought my house just over a year ago. I've not waited once for even 10 seconds to fill up my car. If my observations are inaccurate, in the bigger picture somehow, shouldn't the city exhaust its options with the nearby abandoned gas station on Warmlands and East Vista Way before allowing another unit to be built? Councilman Green, thank you for detailing some of the efforts you all have been through in trying to address that mess.
Susan, your time is up.
Oh, boy.
So sorry. That 2 minutes goes fast. Melody, followed by Greg Barnacle, followed by Ann Force.
Hello, Council, Mayor. I come to you as a resident of District 2. I've been a resident of Vista since 2004, and I'm a native of North County. Grew up in Cardiff by the Sea. I am also a Vista Unified teacher and teach at Beaumont Elementary, currently starting my 34th year of teaching. I do agree with our previous speaker. I do not know that a gas station would be the safest. I teach at Beaumont, and many of our students do walk from that side of Hillside Terrace. I'm concerned about the increased traffic. There are other gas stations, and I'm not driven by what is the most convenient. I also go by price when I'm purchasing gas, so depending on what was put in. I also know that at that very corner, as I've waited to turn left, because I do live right up the hill here from the Civic Center, I have seen multiple times people running that red light, crossing the intersection, going westbound. So I am very concerned about students walking, and I know many of our parents do not have two-car vehicles, and that would just add traffic, a longer amount of traffic, and more heavy traffic with a gas station. So I have no problem with changing the zoning, but I don't know that a gas station would be the safest and best use for our community members and our students that live in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg Barnacle, followed by Ann Force. And then I have two people who didn't want to speak. Nancy Oshley, who is in opposition, and Rebecca Medici, who is also in opposition. Neither one of them wanted to speak. So then after that would be Ann Force, followed by Stephanie Jackal.
Okay.
Hi, Greg.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. I'm Greg Barnacle, business owner and resident here in Vista, and I'm in opposition of this. It's when we had our facility last year with the median, it was the safety issue. It all boiled down to traffic safety. And it was just said tonight, this is the busiest corner in Vista, which it is. There's 18 lanes converging there. They want to add one more lane to make it 19. You're coming down, I mean, there's not a straight road or a perpendicular road at that intersection. You're coming down East Vista Way, make a slight left, downhill. You can't see the light till you're about 100 feet away because of the trees. You pull out a Hilltop Terrace. You have to go past the stop line to merge out because it's a blind corner to your left to make a right turn. And the lot's not level. They have to level it out, take out 6 to 10 feet of dirt. What's that going to do to the drives on Hillside Terrace? Can a fuel truck pulling a 40-foot semi up the hill, down the drive, and get in with 65,000 pounds? And if it can't, can it come in on East Vista Way? Is the lot going to be big enough to make a U-turn to get out? I've asked for an accident report that they said, the city said it'll be about 2 weeks before I get it, so I can't show you any specs on accidents there. You've got the school across the street. When the kids hit the crosswalk button, it's going to extend the red light. How many kids are going to jaywalk? They do it already. You got the fire department. If that's going to be a high volume business there, is that going to clog up the intersection more, making it hard for the fire department to get out? And I think, too, you know, we owe Chin something. It's a great restaurant. I can name 5 restaurants we've lost here in Vista, nice sit-down restaurants in the last couple of years. And I think we owe it to Chin's to stay there. You know, if you're looking at tax revenues there, I don't think you're going to see an increase in sales tax because it's going to be business from me and the stations on our street. You know, if you kept Chin's there, you're going to see an increase in tax revenue.
Your time is up.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Ann Force, followed by Stephanie Jackal, followed by Stephanie Mitchell.
Good evening. I'm Ann Force. I've lived in Vista for 22 years, and I'm opposed to the D2 request for permit and zoning change. There's already a convenience store a half block away from this location and a dollar store across the street. There are 2 more gas stations within 3 blocks, including Mr. Barnacle's station. Another gas station and convenience store would cause more vehicle emissions for the Hillside Terrace neighborhood and a hangout for middle school children at Vista Magnet School. Where are the studies that show another gas station or convenience store are needed? And where are the studies that show the possible impact of a gas station on the nearby Buena Vista Creek if gas should leak in that direction? it would be going downhill toward that creek. And shouldn't we be thinking about electric vehicle charging stations, not about more gas stations? If Vista needs more income to help with its city services, please consider investing in solar or kinetic energy to save our taxpayers $90,000 per month for electricity. ¿Saben ustedes que pagamos $90,000 cada mes por electricidad? ¿Por qué no tenemos energía solar? Also, if this particular area is going into a transition, it would help the downtown area if there could be a small drop-in center for homeless people who frequent Wildwood Park and the nearby county library. And about 90% of the 911 calls are for homeless people. And maybe this would reduce the calls on the sheriff's department. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie Jackel, followed by Stephanie Mitchell, followed by Matt.
Good evening. In my opinion, this is an all-time terrible idea. To replace a very nice restaurant with a gas station and a convenience store, it's a really terrible idea for Vista, visually, culturally, and socially. Please, it's not the highest and best use. Please don't approve this.
Thank you. Stephanie Mitchell, followed by Matt. Is Matt still here? Oh, okay.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Mitchell. I've been here since 1987. Regarding the zone change, I'm against it. I want to thank the council members who responded promptly to my emails. You guys know who you are. I believe that the traffic will increase on there. The existing exiting out of Hillside Terrace, turning left is already a challenge, and the northbound or the eastbound East Vista Way would have more people trying to turn left into the station after they've already turned onto it from Civic Center. We've already seen people trying to cut into the Chin Center across there, and I realize. So, and with all the new construction and all the new residences going in, there's going to be a lots more traffic that we're going to have. We already have a lot of established gas stations, and it would be nice to let our gas stations that we do have get their own market share out of all these new residences that they're going to be getting. And also to have the property as it is, it's an icon as you come into Vista. And yes, it's nice to see that the retro style buildings. We don't want to have all brand new, fancy, sparkly, streamlined businesses. We want to be the Vista we used to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt, our last speaker.
Yes. Good evening, City Council. I'm glad we took a break after the marijuana issue. That was pretty intense. I think we declared war at one point. At first, I was against the gas station, just because I feel like we should have more storage units in the city. But I actually see on a previous issue that's like already taken care of. So you guys are way ahead of the game. Now I'm like kind of lukewarm about it. I mean, maybe if we can get like a combo gas station car wash, because we don't have enough car washes either. I mean, all kidding aside, I can see the benefits of doing this. Free development, convenience, revenue. You know, those are all good things. But there's a lot of other considerations. Just going back to what the developer was talking about, definitely looked like there was a turn across 2 yellow lanes, very short turn. So I didn't really see the free flow of traffic being there. And just generally speaking, this is a really good opportunity. So we shouldn't just sort of settle. I mean, they had this like, maybe it'll be a gas station presentation, and then there's like a picture with definitely a gas station. So let's like slow down on that, and let's just sort of explore all the possibilities that we can put in this great location.
Thank you. That was our last speaker, so I will go to our council and Councilmember Contreras.
Thank you to all the speakers that came forward and, gave us your opinions, whether you came here in person. We got a lot of emails. There's a lot of flutter on social media. To the Delpy family, and this isn't going to be a surprise, because when I met with you, sir, behind closed doors reviewing this, I said immediately there would be zero support from the community. This is a district that I represent. This is an area that I walk. This is an area that we all pass by because we come here for work, right? So I'm very familiar, and I don't want to get upset, but it is upsetting, some of the liberties taken. So I'm going to go through some of those. So traffic, right? There's a lot in here telling us that the traffic's going to improve. Is that just anecdotal? Is there actual data? Because there is absolutely no way in a real life situation that traffic flow will be improved by more people entering and exiting that location. Now, the fencing was a new thing. So we didn't talk about that behind closed doors, but I absolutely hate the fencing idea, because I don't even like the one that's on North Santa Fe. We're constantly having to replace that because people are running into it. It is an ugly division that really does divide the community. I don't like the fencing idea whatsoever. Let's see, food. Is there a reason that in this giant packet there's never a mention of a store that individuals can walk to? It's about 0.2 miles according to Google, 3-minute walking distance from Chins. It's called La Vista Market. It's been there for a while. It's nowhere to be found in this packet. So when we're talking about how people don't have the option to purchase food, first of all, this is going to be a strong word that I use, but it's laughable to say that a convenience store and the type of food that they have is going to be a benefit to our community. Absolutely, it is not. When they can just walk 3 minutes from that location and actually get some better food at La Vista Market. Okay, so wasn't too happy about hearing that. The cars overnight. If that is happening, it should have been included in this packet with some evidence, because I pass by that intersection a lot and I don't see a problem with that parking lot being filled with cars that are parking overnight and people working on their cars. I think people are just afraid to be in that area later at night because of the issues that we have with transients, and there could be an argument made that this is going to activate that corner and we won't have those issues. I don't believe that if we were to get into a discussion about that, that we would end up having a conclusion that says that the activation of that corner is going to help alleviate the issues that we're experiencing at Wildwood Park. That's a separate issue that the council's trying to deal with our homeless master plan. Now, one thing that hasn't been discussed is the fact that this has never been a gas station before. And once you put a gas station in, there is forever contamination. That is absolutely detrimental to our community. It's detrimental to the students that heavily use this intersection to go to and from school, back to their house, go to the little market. We don't need to be contaminating more of our soil. We're about 18 square miles. There's no reason to put a gas station here. And I will never, ever prioritize the convenience of someone filling up their car in the more cut-through traffic on East Vista Way. I will never prioritize someone fueling up their car and buying a bag of chips over the real benefits that our community deserves. So I am 100% opposed to this zone change. I understand, there's probably a misconception in the public that, they're trying to drive away Chins, and I will say that that's probably not the case, right? Like the property owner, we do know that property owners have specific rights. It seems like, they've taken a hit financially by lowering the rents to allow these businesses to stay. So I'm really thankful for that. However, I wasn't elected to represent a specific family. The city itself is not responsible for maintaining profits or investments that were made. And maintaining a good rate of return that's outside of our scope. So for the reasons that I've stated, I'm 100% against accepting this application. If you guys are looking to discuss maybe some other uses outside of a convenience store, then, I would be open to that. I understand that, you're not trying to do this maliciously, but when we're overreaching and presenting benefits that the majority of people, maybe 99%, don't see, it's not a good way to present a project. So, and that's pretty much all I have to say. I would like to hear what my colleagues, what their thoughts are on this project.
Councilmember Rigby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was going to ask also about La Vista store, which is you walk across the street and you go past Donnell's and you go past the Taylor and bammo, there's a grocery store right there. I stop there frequently on my way home from here, and no mention of it. When we met previously, you said that you had not talked to Chins yet about the plans. That was a bit distressing to hear. If it's all right, Madam Mayor, I do have a couple of questions for him, if that's okay to bring him up to the well.
If he comes off the microphone.
That would be great. Thank you. I think we had a good conversation, and I was very open and very honest about what I thought about this project. But I was very taken aback by the fact that you hadn't discussed this with the tenants prior to coming to council, prior to coming to the city. So I wanted to know now that they know that this is what you want to do. And I understand, because what I'm hearing from the Delpy family, and I thank you very much for being here and everything that your family has done and been to Vista. And I understand that the shopping center is owned by the Delpy family, and it has become a great burden for them to continue maintaining it and oversight of it. And you're looking to do a ground lease to have somebody, perhaps of a national chain, come in, build something, and then take care of the whole property themselves, so that the Delpy family no longer has to be the property managers. Does that sum it up?
That's a good characterization, yes.
Okay. And then in our discussion, you were going to talk to the Chins, as well as Froggies and Tresses and Treasures and the others, about relocating them. And you had identified at that point a couple of locations in Vista that you wanted to introduce them to. How did those conversations go?
Well, thank you for asking me about that. Number one, in talking about the fact that we hadn't spoken to each and every one of the tenants specifically about this opportunity, the idea here is that this forum, this discussion, was about the potential opportunity to pursue some kind of submittal. Mm-hmm. The tenants were notified once we knew exactly when we were going to have this meeting. We talked to them about the discussion about pursuing the opportunity in order to do the zone change. There isn't any signed agreements with any national chain groups that are coming in to swoop in and push any of the tenants out. The Delpy family certainly wouldn't engage in some type of nefarious pursuit of keeping from the tenants that they would have some kind of notice of this happening. If some kind of indication from the city council was that the zone change would be allowable, I think that process is probably a year minimum in order to process that kind of paperwork. Chin's has come to the end of their lease. That's one of the main reasons that we're pursuing this opportunity right now. Chin's entered into a business relationship with the Delpy family for a very long period of time. And Chin's has been passively negotiating with the Delpy family on what those terms and conditions might be for them to stay in the property. In looking at this from the reverse, I hope everyone's taking into consideration that as a landlord, you have to look far ahead in order to ensure that you allocate or have enough funds in order to provide tenant improvements for new tenants.
I think we all do understand that, and thank you for answering my question. So I'm going to take the answer to be no. You have not talked to them.
Oh no, we've talked to all of them.
To where you were going to move them to.
Have I personally talked to them? No, the Delpy family has talked to each and every one of the tenants about our pursuit of asking for a zone change.
No. The question was, you had indicated to me when we met that, and I said to you about Chin's being one of my family's favorite places.
Yes.
I agree with all the things we've heard on social media. Chin's is a fabulous place, and we hate to lose it, but I also understand private property rights, and that this is something that isn't really about Chin's.
That's correct.
But you had said that you had already identified a property
I have.
in Vista that you
1040
wanted to
East
talk
Vista
to
Way.
them about.
It's a 5,700 square foot restaurant that's available right now.
Right, I understand. So my question is, in the 2 weeks since we have spoken and you brought that up, have you made any further discussions with Chin's about perhaps moving there?
No, I personally have not.
Okay, thank you. That was my question.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for misunderstanding what the question was.
That's okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. This is a hard one because it is private property, and they do, the family has rights, and the city can't say, yes, you have to do this, and no, you can't do that. And as somebody said earlier, there was a reason. I don't have any more questions for
thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate your assistance, though. I'm sure there was a reason a long time ago that we changed the zoning on this. That I don't recall that being shared, why we did it so long ago, but we did. And now we're asking to change it again. I have to say, a gas station isn't the first place I go to for that corner. It's a very busy corner already, and there's a gas station down the street, and I live over by the courthouse, and sometimes I will drive over to Barnacles because you've got the best prices in town usually, so I appreciate that. So as far as the competition goes, and I did get your letter, you did submit a letter to council, and I do appreciate that very much. But as you probably heard me say earlier regarding the last item that we talked about, or previous, I'm really big on free market enterprise. The best guys, may the best guy win, and the best prices and the best service is going to be the one who wins. And for those of us who are willing to drive across town to get gas, I'm willing to drive across town to do that, to get the best price and the best deal with the friendliest staff. So I don't make any decision based on business and competitiveness or non-competitiveness, because we have had businesses actually come to council and ask us to quash business because it will hurt their business. And that's not who we are as Americans. It's like, may the best man win. But a gas station, almost any other purpose besides a gas station, I really have a hard time with a gas station, because anybody who's been following along for the last 7 years has heard me say multiple times, to do a zone change, to do a special permit use, to do any of these types of changes that require coming to council, how is it going to better the community? How is it going to better that neighborhood? We have gas station up the road, brand new, light, getting in and out of it easy, so the hassle for that doesn't float for me. We have a supermarket a couple doors down the road on this side. We have Sprouts, we've got the dollar store, we've got a couple of other things within walking distance of this location as well. I don't know that a gas station is going to make the neighborhood better. I don't know how that enhances and lifts up the neighborhood. Also, we talked about, it was brought up, the long-term, almost lifelong effects of gas tanks in the ground. And we have Shells up on Vista Way, which we all are very familiar with. We have the old Texaco place up here on Emerald, not far from where I'm at. We have I think there was a third place up until recently, finally got mitigated. But they just sit there languishing for years and years and years, and they contaminate, and they're all the kinds of things that we have to deal with should this gas station not stay in operation, or 10 or 20 years if it's not in operation anymore. That's something that the community has to deal with long-term afterward. And how does that lift up our community? And that's something that I think a lot of people think about every day as they drive down Emerald and they drive down Vista Way and they see these dilapidated places. I think the Texaco place might be getting dealt with soon, but certainly didn't happen soon enough. So I do have some serious concerns about putting a convenience store here. I understand the position that you're in and the wants and the needs of your family very much. I just wonder, can you go back and have a conversation of something else that might be on the list to do besides a gas station? So I have some serious hesitations about what you're asking. But as far as if we change the zone change back to commercial 1 from neighborhood commercial, Mr. Conley, what again, I think you enumerated a few, but if you could refresh our memory, what types, if not a gas station, what other types of businesses could come into a C1?
Most of what is allowed in the C1 zone is already allowed in the specific plan. So it's a retail. Mixed-use zoning allows for a mix of retail and service uses comparable to the C1 zone, and housing. So that's the difference. Gas stations are not allowed in the mixed-use zone. They're only allowed in the C1 zone. So that's one of the few uses that would be allowed in one, but not allowed in the other.
I'm sorry, and you said the word housing. So if we change this back, they could theoretically put apartments here?
No, you could put apartments that are under the current zoning.
Okay, just making sure I have my stuff straight. So, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Deputy Mayor.
I think that issue of apartments is an important point. I think we would have, first of all, I don't think apartments belong right there on a major thoroughfare, and that's exactly what we told Chris Magnuson when he wanted to put residential housing right there, just a couple of 100 yards up, right? Maybe a half mile or something. I don't want to talk about gas stations or restaurants. What I have to say has nothing to do with gas stations and has nothing to do with restaurants. State law requires that every property is assessed at its best and highest use so that the state can derive the highest property tax from it. And accordingly, I believe that if a piece of property belongs to you, that you have the right to its best and its highest use. I also believe that the community has a right for that use to be conforming, for it not to detract from the community, for it not to be a business of moral turpitude that brings the community down. And I believe that the neighboring properties have a right to the uses that their properties are configured for, and that they have a right to quietly enjoy their property. So I look at somebody who wants to develop property, and I ask those questions. I look at a piece of property as the belonging of the person who in fact owns it. Those of us who are homeowners are very jealous of our rights as property owners and our rights and entitlements to do those things upon our property which we want to do, and we should be. I appreciate someone printing out the Nextdoor comments. I spent a lot of time on Nextdoor. Unfortunately, I'm not close enough to the subject property to be able to access, so this is the first I was able to get to see all the comments that were so hotly referred to. You know, I noticed that somebody said, I'd like to see a dog park here. And it really evidences a mindset that somehow this property belongs to someone other than the person it belongs to. I'm a conservative, and I believe that what's yours is yours, and I believe in protecting your right to do with your property what's your will, and yes, what's profitable for you. That's something that your grandparents set this property aside. Probably it was almost worthless to them, but they had a vision, and your parents and your generation have now, for so many decades, watched this property, watched over it, and tended to it. And what do we all want if not to leave something to our children that can better their futures? And I'm sure that's what you want for your children and grandchildren and for their heirs. That's a natural thing. We all want to leave something for the next generation. And I appreciate, and I look at this parcel, and I see a parcel that does need to be redeveloped. It's got 3 massive trees in front of it. I'm going to go eat at Chen's, whether they stay or they move. I had no idea how beloved the restaurant was. I want to go try the food. I love Chinese food. I think there are lots of other good places. I pulled up 1040 Vista Way. There's out of business Panda Inn or whatever it was called there. It's a ready replacement. We're building about 20,000 square feet of retail downtown at 100 Main. That's maybe not the prime place. Has anybody stopped to ask if Chen's is a profitable going concern? Might they not benefit from a new place of business with new investments by a new landlord who wants to see them to continue to thrive? I mean, and why do we look at the current property owner as if they have some obligation to rent this property in perpetuity to its existing tenant or to relocate them? I own my home, but I lease my place of business, and I leased it for many years under contract lease, and now I'm month to month, and I love being month to month because anytime I want, I can pack up and go. Landlord's been after me for years to sign a new long-term lease because it'd make his property more valuable, but I have the right under my lease, and he's got it on the market right now trying to lease it out from underneath me. In business, these are the risks that we take. The risk is worth it to me to know that tomorrow I could get a 30-day notice to be out. And I wouldn't want to have to move. I'd probably come back in with a competing offer. But that's the negotiation of business, and I just don't understand why we wouldn't respect the rights of someone to their own private property. So, and also, with regard to how many car washes or storage facilities or gas stations, I don't care. The market, you the consumer, will make that decision. I will not make it for you. And I would expect that the people that elected me would want to throw me out on my ear if I started dictating to them how many of a certain thing we need. Now, does the thing bring the community down? I'm all the way an advocate for limiting the number of pot shops. I think they bring the community down. I think they're a business of low moral, character on a generalized basis. Not all of them. Some of them, I'm sure, are going to be fine business people and contribute wonderful things. But there are certain businesses that we limit because we believe that they don't always add. Look, a gas station is not a beautiful thing. Absolutely not. But we all have to fill our gas tank up once a week or once every other week. It's a necessity, and it's one of those things that provides us all with something we need. As far as the safety goes, I'd like to see, if it is developed into a gas station, I'd like to see you have a swept right that prevents a left, essentially forcing someone to only be able to turn right in. I'd like to physically eliminate the possibility of a left turnout. Once somebody comes out to the light, I'm thinking of a gas station that I sometimes fill up at on Melrose. The Chevron there is the exact same thing. You cannot turn left out of it. You have to turn right in, and then once you come out, you can get that light on Sycamore, and you can go right or left. The final thing I want to say on this is I'm getting a little sour on the design review process. We ask business people, property owners, to put up hundreds of thousands of dollars to apply for building permits, for zone changes, for general plan amendments. And in the past, we would ask a business person to invest sometimes 2-3 years and hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes even millions of dollars, in architecture, design consultants, land use consultants, environmental impact reviews. And then we would get all the way to the end of the line, and it would finally come to the Planning Commission or maybe get appealed to the City Council. And then at that point, after somebody spent $300,000 in 3 years of their life, all of a sudden you get to the council, and the council would go, you know, we don't think we like that. And the business person, the investor, would sit there and go, boy, I really wish you would have told me that 3 years ago, because I'd have taken my money and my time and I'd have gone elsewhere. So what we've done in the city of Vista is we implemented a design review process. That's what we're doing here today. The impact of this decision is not a binding decision, and that's something I want to reconfirm and I want it to be stated publicly. This is not a binding thing. People have a right to bring an idea forward. This is where the council is letting the applicant, the potential applicant, know what the political will is. Sometimes we've told people, don't even bother applying if you didn't get all of us in agreement. I don't necessarily feel that way, because the traffic issue is one that you would have an opportunity to explore during the development process, and we're not giving you a fair opportunity to even explore whether you can remediate that issue if we don't allow you to go through that process. If you don't get a majority of the council here tonight, and I suspect you might not, you will have to make a decision as business people about whether you want to risk your time and your money. But I think it's very important for everybody, for you as well as the citizens who are listening, to understand that this process tonight is not about granting your change of use. If we were to proceed, we still would have the ability, you will still have to go through a full environmental impact review. You will still have to go before the Planning Commission. That decision may be appealed to the City Council, and ultimately you may be sitting here a year or 18 months or 24 months from now, and the council will have this exact same discussion. There will probably be much greater interest from the public at that time, and you will be at risk of losing your investment in time and effort. So I think it's important, really, that the public understands exactly what we're doing here tonight is trying to signal to you whether there's even enough will in the community, and that's why I appreciate the community, everybody who came out to speak, comment, email, write, because that helps you and us to understand what the will of the community is. So again, I'm not here to talk about how many gas stations we need or how many restaurants we need. What I do want is I do want to see new investment in our city. If we're not reinvesting, if Chen's needs a facelift, I don't think that would hurt their feelings to say that. Your property needs a facelift. You said it yourself. The landscaping is tired. It's really not visible, and it really, to be honest with you, is not the kind of construction at present that would draw me as a consumer in. So you need to do something different there. At minimum, I'd cut those trees down so that people can see what's behind those trees and know that there's, I hate cutting trees down. I love trees. Maybe we could relocate them, or at least plant about 3 new ones for every one you cut down, right? Yes. But the point is, and maybe you'd plant some beautiful new trees on that site somewhere so that we wouldn't lose. I also think this issue about the contamination of the ground, we have sites that were built 30, 50, 60 years ago when the technologies that were employed and the regulations, the EPA didn't exist when a lot of these gas stations, no, seriously, it didn't. It didn't exist when some of these gas stations that we're still remediating were built. There are new technologies, and I don't know. I suspect somebody's more expert at it than I am, but I would guess that the contamination that we saw from service stations, filling stations that were built 50 years ago probably present different challenges from the kind of tanks that are used to store fuel in the ground now. I certainly know that the inspection and regulatory regime is much stiffer, and as hot as I am to get us all to electric vehicles as soon as possible with the rest of you, we're not going to be free of our dependence on gasoline anytime in the immediate future, so we're going to continue to need a place to buy it. I'm trying to represent the people that elected me, not through emotion and not through an attachment to any individual's best interests, but
the thing is, someday you'll come before us and it will be the property that your name's on the deed, and you'll want to be treated fairly. And so I think it's important that we uphold those principles of government that protect private property. And in this case, I would invite you to go through the process. But again, you'll want to pay careful attention to what the rest of the council has to say.
Councilmember Green.
All right, I have a couple questions for you, Mr. Looney, please. First of all, I did want you to address the forever contaminating the ground issue. Have you looked into new technologies of gas stations? And if we change this to a gas station, is it forever contaminated and it can never be anything else ever again?
The idea of gas stations forever contaminating ground is completely unfounded for the new technologies today. It's absolutely almost impossible for those tanks to leak. They're double holed. They have absorbing material around them. They have to be pulled out on a scheduled basis and inspected. They have all kinds of different protections put in place. I'm working with a national tenant in Oceanside. They've just gone through the CUP process in Oceanside, and all of those things were asked and addressed in the exact same way.
Okay. Thank you.
Technology is very different.
Okay, and then the other question that Councilman Rigby asked about the Chin's restaurant. I'm a huge fan of Chin's. I frequent Chin's probably once every couple weeks. I love that poo-poo platter. Family's big fans. So my initial reaction when he said he wanted to get rid of Chin's was no way, no how. I love Chin's. Don't go away. And I think that's the knee-jerk reaction of a lot of Vistans. And like Deputy Mayor Franklin said, it is an emotional reaction. It's emotional attachment. And I won't be making my decision either based off of my emotional reaction or attachment. However, I do hate losing great restaurants in the city of Vista, and kind of something, I know it's not my job to add the extra burden on you, but as Councilwoman Rigby said, there is another Chinese restaurant vacant in our town. Is that a discussion that the Delpy family and the Looney family would be willing to have to ensure that Chin's could keep its client base here in Vista?
I've already engaged with the broker that represents that property, his local broker. That property has been, the interior has been demoed and it's ready to be redeveloped. That owner is looking, he's actually engaged with a couple of other prospects at the moment. However, none of those deals, he assured me none of those deals were solid. I reached out to that property owner because of the makeup of that building. I didn't know it was already demoed. But the size of the restaurant is larger. I've done my due diligence in that I know that Chin's has already been out of the market looking at other opportunities. Okay. And without disclosing confidential information about business dealings, Chin's has approached the Delpys about renewing. Yeah. And I would say that that part of the reason that the Delpys are looking for other options is based on the nature of that offer to stay.
So that's my question for you as well, is I've heard a lot of people say, hey, this is a 4-star facility. I drive by facilities all the time. I personally wouldn't say the actual structure and facility is a 4-star facility. My question to you is there any truth to the upgrades needing to be done? Like, is it a thing of, hey, they've been there for 20 years and the laws are new now, and now if the Delpys want to keep them there, they got to spend so much money to keep them, and they may not stay anyways, is kind of what I'm getting at.
So I'm going to answer it this way. When a long-term restaurant tenant of Chin's type comes towards the end of their lease, they've been in the building for 20 years. I've been in Chin's. The investment has been minimal in order to maintain ADA upgrades, finishes, I would say exterior improvements. The investment has been minimal. Therefore, you have a building that's been utilized for 20 years that belongs to the property owner that they're going to get handed back to them in the condition that it's in today. Part of the problem, I'll call it a problem, with renewing Chin's in its current form is part of their demands is that they stay open the entire time. It's almost next to impossible to renovate a restaurant while it stays open 24 hours, or not 24 hours, but typical. The opportunity for Chins to relocate into another building with a new building owner would be very advantageous for them because that property owner would have the funds to build them out a new restaurant before they had to vacate. And to answer Councilman Rigby's question about why we haven't really pursued Chins urgently, is just like Mr. Franklin mentioned, 24 months maybe for review. There's no reason to shake up your tenants, make them uneasy, make them nervous. If the city council hasn't even considered changing the zoning, I don't want to scare my tenant away. I don't want Chins to think that we're making them move. We're not. We're here exploring a zone change opportunity to see if it's even possible. So I think did I answer your question?
It's all my questions. Thank you so much. All right, so the other thing, let's see. So I did receive a lot of feedback online. Most of it said, please, Chins, don't go away. We love you, which I feel you on that. And a lot of it had to do with the gas station and the traffic, which I know you said that you looked at all those things. I personally am a fan of the fence. And the reason why I'm a fan of the fence is I feel like you're not going to have people able to cross directly across the street to a convenience store from a park. I think there is a lot of traffic mitigation that's going to have to be done. There's going to be a lot of environmental impacts. You've heard concerns about fumes for students and things, and whether those are founded or unfounded, I don't know. I'm not into all the environmental aspects of it per se, but I do believe in private property rights. I know the Delpy family. I know all their children and a lot of their family that's lived in Vista for the entire time. And I know that they're not trying to bring something to my community that is detrimental to my community, that's going to make it worse. I drive by this building probably 5 to 6 times a day. I live off of Foothill Drive, and I have a business on Civic Center Drive, which I lease my business and I own my home. I am also on a month-to-month, and I know that my landlord has my property for sale. I've been in my same place for 20 years as well, and I'm on a month-to-month. I understand my property owner has rights and can do what they want. As opposed to tell you that you can't do a gas station and you can't get rid of Chins, I'd like my colleagues, if the majority tells you they can't, is to offer you options and suggestions you can do in order to beautify that corner for my community. Currently, it is zoned in the specific plan, which means that it is mixed-use zoning, which means you can put residential in there with business underneath. Why the zoning was changed out from under your noses without your consensus in 2010, without your approval, I don't think that was right. I feel like they should, just like you're asking us to change the zoning, we should have had some type of conversation with you and your family prior to changing the zoning. So asking for zoning to go back to how it was originally zoned, in my opinion, isn't such an unreasonable request. I would love to see something fantastic there, but I really don't even know what else would go there that would be able to give the community the improvements they need traffic-wise, and also the Strip the improvements that it needs facade-wise. It's not a facade improvement grant issue. This is a building and a structure that has been, in a deferred maintenance per se aspect for a very long time and requires extreme upgrades. So I want to let you know that even though my community is going to miss Chins terribly and does not necessarily want a gas station in that place, that I would also say, hey, the concerns that they have to do with traffic, they have to do with environmental impact, and they have to do with where's Chins going. And if you can address those concerns with your submittal process, I really believe that the vibe in the community could possibly change, because I'll tell you what, I like new shiny things. I also like the retro, but I like new shiny things. And I think that that center does look very bad, and I have witnessed cars parking there overnight. I did have kids go to Vista Magnet all 3 years. I see the pickup and drop off that happens at that location. I know the wear and tear that is on your parking lot is legit. And as a property owner, you do deserve to get the highest and best use of your property, and it's not my job as the government to tell you that you can't do it, even if it hurts my feelings or I don't like the way that it makes me feel necessarily. So I would encourage you to submit your project and just kind of see where the chips fall. You may not get the majority of the council tonight, but I think if you do the work that the community wants you to do from a safety aspect and a traffic impact aspect, Like I love to say, it's not magic, it's math. Show me how you're going to add another line off Hillside Terrace. Show me how you're going to make it impossible for people to turn left over 4 lanes into that area. Show me the need for that fence. Why do we put it there? So people can't just run to the median and stop and then run to the other side. We want them to not even want to go across that street, 8 lanes of traffic, okay? So that's my take on it. I do feel like as a property owner, you should have the opportunity to get the highest and best use. And I have a family that's owned property in this county for a really long time. My family used to own the Quails Inn in San Marcos. My grandma owns a property off of Loma Santa Fe now in Solana Beach, the Citibank building. And we're dealing with the Solana Beach government on what they can and can't do to their property. And that's going to be a legacy that the family, my family was trying to leave for our family. So I understand the situation that you're in. I also understand that there's going to be a community that is going to be rallying against you, just as they rallied against my family a little bit in Solana Beach. But in the end, we ended up doing the repairs that I feel like are going to benefit that community. And I know that the love your family has for the city of Vista, that you guys will bring something to our community that's going to be more beneficial than a hindrance to our community. So thank you for your submittal. Thank you for wanting to do something to beautify our town. And thanks for wanting to bring new revenue and new jobs to our community. It's a big thing. Appreciate it.
Councilmember Rigby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to make sure that the Delpy family didn't think that I was not appreciative of all you do for our community and have been to the community. And I don't ever think that you'd want to do anything or bring anything to the community that wasn't going to be a good thing. So I don't want you to have that takeaway when you leave here. I do absolutely understand and respect private property rights. And as I said earlier and was reiterated by my colleague, it's not our job to tell you what you can and cannot do with your property within the parameters that have been set forth. So although gas station wouldn't be my first choice, it's not for me to say that that's not what you should do with your property. I did want to go back because I did have in my notes to speak to it, and I forgot that was about the fence. I don't like the fence. I think the fence really is, and I don't like the fence on Santa Fe either. It's ugly. I think the fence has a negative visual concept. So if you're taking a vote on the fence, I'm just putting my words out there. That's okay. We don't need to speak about the fence. I'm just putting it out there. If it comes back in the conceptual design, we can talk about it more then. But since a couple people brought up the fence, and if you're taking a finger in the wind poll on that one, I'm
You
not,
can't talk.
No, thank you. No, I'm not asking you a question. So I just wanted to put that out there that I'm not a fan of the fence. I think they have a very negative visual for our community, and we don't need a negative visual for our community. People know that jaywalking is wrong. Jaywalking is illegal. Maybe if we put a sign up or two on a couple corners, that would help with that. But I don't think a black fence going down the street is what we need. So I don't particularly, going from specific plan to commercial or mixed use to neighborhood commercial, I don't particularly have a problem with that today. Should this project not go through, if something were to happen, as we've experienced in our community before, we've changed the zoning and something fell through and we got something that we didn't want, I would really be very wary of that scenario coming at us again. But I don't have a particular problem with changing this. Anyway, thank you.
Councilmember Contreras.
I just hope that everybody listening and everybody out in the audience really holds this council accountable for the actions that we may take today. Because obviously, when we're asking for people to comment and we get overwhelmingly a ton of comments where there's zero support, and we do something different, then we need to be held accountable for those types of decisions. However, I do want to talk a little bit more about the contamination, because I don't know how my colleagues are, but I'm really well-versed in being able to read scientific literature and research papers and scholarly articles. So, a quick Google search for scholarly articles on gas contamination. We may have the best tanks ever. We may be able to contain as much of the gasoline as possible in the tanks, but you know what? I see people spilling gas all the time. So to say that there is zero possibility and that this is not scientifically true is a farce. So please, let's not pretend that there's zero contamination that can happen, because first of all, for anybody who knows anything about gasoline, we know it's very volatile and it will vaporize. There are studies that are coming out showing that the vapors that are coming from gas stations are a lot more dangerous than people thought before, especially when there's parks, schools, and residential areas around it. There's a reason why we don't see gas stations surrounded by a ton of residential area. Okay, so that's not usually common. There's usually some kind of distance. So, you know, when we're talking about the free market, we're talking about property owners. Yes, you have rights. I 100% support property owner rights, but there is a local government aspect to that, and you're coming here requesting a zone change. You're asking the council, you're not working within the parameters of the free market that is given to you at this point. You want to mitigate, you want to change the free market dynamics to allow for this project to go forward. So I just want to state that out loud, right? So let's not pretend that the free market dictates everything when you're coming and asking for a zone change. I just don't see how that's valid. But in any case, I am 100% against this, and I know that all the residents in that area, I still haven't found one person that has supported this. So I will continue to fight against this use. If there's another use, let's have a discussion on that. I think that the zoning is fine how it is. If we want to have a discussion on residential, I'm willing to go talk to every single door within a mile radius and see what they think about residential versus a gas station. So I'm willing to put the work. I'm willing to listen to what people have already said. There is zero support for this project. I will not be supporting it at all. And I just hope that the public really holds this council accountable.
Okay, everybody has buttons they can push, and they keep pushing these buttons, but I don't have a button to push so I can talk. So I'm going to jump in here. I could think, well, I'll jump in. No, I'll wait till these guys go. So anyway, I just want to say, I appreciate what the Delpies do and have done for our community. I know Jim. I work with him at Coldwell Banker. I know Jackie. I went skiing with you a few years ago, and so I know the Delpies. And I remember the vats out there on Foothill, the wine vats from the Delpy corner down there. So, I mean, they've been around here for a long time. Delpy's done a lot for our community. But saying that, I love Chins. I love Chins and I love Froggies. I go in there all the time in that parking lot. Sometimes I park there when I go to the Moonlight, so don't tow my car. So, but when I look at that intersection, and I always access it from Hillside Terrace. I don't ever turn left. From Hillside Terrace, you could turn in, or you can go straight out of it. You can turn left. It's the best way to go in and out of there rather than trying to go across traffic. When you say about the fences, the fence on South Santa Fe, they're there for safety because the skateboarders go across the road in the middle of the road. And I can see people from Wildwood Park going across the road in the middle of the road. They just do it. And so it doesn't always look that nice, but you got to have, it's for safety. It isn't for the visuals, or sometimes you have to have something for safety. And with the fire station there, you can't have people running across the road and doing things. So I don't necessarily like it for visual, but, and the other thing I wanted to say was there, on the corner, the reason it was changed, I remember the change, and I don't remember why, but one of the reasons was because there was a project that was on the corner across from Chins. There was a housing project there that was all ready to go. I remember the plans being in and everything, but it was just before the recession hit, and the recession hit, and then the whole project went away. So that, and I don't remember if that's why they changed the zoning, and I think they felt that if there's a housing project there, that it would, on that corner, it might be okay also. I don't remember the thinking on that. I just remember that was there. So, but the other thing is that intersection is not it's not a total X. I mean, it's an X. It's not a total, what do you want to call it? Not a code cross. It's more like an X, and so it's a hard intersection to turn on stuff on there. So I just don't see putting a gas station and a store there. With all the traffic that's there and the left turn lane, the double left turn lane, and everything, I just think that it would be too much for that corner. But I understand that you guys want to develop it, and I'm open to something else. I just don't know that a gas station, would be a good thing. And plus, the school, the kids that walk there, that would want them. They would want to go to this little store and buy things after, potato chips and things after school. So I can see that it could cause a problem. But anyway, so I don't support the zone change there. So, but I support the Delpies, and anything else you can come forward with, I'm happy to look at and support possibly. So anyway, but for this tonight, I don't. So now I'll go back to the buttons again. Deputy Mayor.
I can't stop thinking about how full this room would be if we were listening to a proposal to build 40 residential units to the acre. Which is fully entitled as it stands right now. That probably wouldn't go over real well. Somebody who's a relative of mine came up with something called the Healy Vapor Lock. I just have to point this out. It is a total scam. I've bought gas in, 35 states and never spilled a drop of it. And I can't put gas in my car in California without at least 2 drops of gasoline being spilled by this infernal Healy Vapor Lock made by somebody named Franklin somewhere. It's a total scam that somebody thought was going to stop gasoline from evaporating, but the morons didn't realize it causes you to drip a few drops. And what the hell happens to those drops? Why, they evaporate. Dumb. And people ought to know about it. Totally stupid thing. Because I'm telling you, I never ever have a drop of gasoline in the rest of the country that falls from the nozzle. And I think it's important. Hold me accountable. Hold me accountable to the decision that I would make after I gave you 5 or 10 minutes to speak your mind and make sense. But heaven help us if the people ever want to replace us with a buzzer that's they push the button on after reading everybody's tweets. I'm sure Twitter could devise a technology right now, and we could all go home. I mean, heaven knows I'd like to be home eating my wife. She made hummus chicken tonight, and it sounds really good. And I had a little salad earlier, but I'm ready for that chicken now. So I wouldn't mind being home there. But we're talking about this important decision. I don't want to live in a society where we make decisions 140 characters at a time, or where we react emotionally. I like to apply logic and principle to questions that come before me. That's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to honor the principles that I believe, maybe everybody won't agree with me, but they're the principles that I believe are the building blocks of a successful economy, and particularly a successful free market economy, which I believe to be the strongest, most effective, and most wealth-creating and life-changing force in the history of the world for good, to uplift people out of poverty and create opportunity. And that is why I will defend, until the people vote me out, and till my dying day, I will defend the principles of a free market economy, because the free market economy is the thing which has created the greatest opportunity. It's why I'm here doing this, because I want to defend our children's ability to live in a prosperous economy and be successful. And I believe that these principles are the greatest guarantee, and that when we get into dictating from the dais of government every decision of business people, some things we have a legitimate interest in regulating, but when we start telling people every decision that they can make in business, I just think we've gone the wrong direction. So that's what I had to say.
Councilmember Green.
I was actually just responding to my fellow councilwoman's comment as well about holding the council accountable. I would greatly appreciate being held accountable as well. I was out there asking for comments. I probably had over 300 comments. I reached over 5,000 people on social media. What I heard was that people didn't want to lose chins because they were emotionally attached to it like I was. I also heard that people were concerned with traffic, people were concerned with environmental impacts, and people really don't want a whole lot of change. So hearing all that stuff, I took it all into consideration. I believe that the developer and the Delpy family heard it. Like we say, we might not have the tons of support for a gas station, but I don't know what the market dictates for a gas station or for a restaurant or for a car wash or for storages. And if that is what the market is dictating and that's what you want to do with your property, I am not here to stand in your way. And I really feel like I've taken all of the community's concerns into mind, and that when all is said and done, we're going to have a project that's going to look good for Vista. And if a gas station turns out that it's going to be too many trips and it's going to be unsafe and it's not going to work, guess what? We're not going to put a gas station there. But after we do the traffic impact studies and how we can improve the intersections from whatever it's graded to whatever it's going to be graded, because we have traffic engineers who do all of that work, we'll be able to make a decision. So once again, know this is called an early design review. It's super early, and what we're saying is, hey, property owner, submit your proposal. We're going to look at it. We're not going to shut you down today. So with that, hold me accountable for telling a property owner to submit a plan on a property that they own. I love being accountable to my constituents. Thank you.
This is information only. I was just looking to see if we need a motion on it, but I think it's information only. So, okay. Okay, so.
Mr. Conley, would you?
Question at hand is the city council okay with bringing in an application to change the land use and zoning designation? What I got from the discussion is that there are 3 council members that are in favor of allowing for the application to proceed, and there are 2 that are not. So if that's sufficient direction, then we'll move it forward.
Everybody agree with that? So 1, 2, 3, and then 2 of us that are not. Okay. Then you got it. So it's okay. There are 3 of them agreed, so you're okay.
If the applicant wants to proceed, then the staff will process the application. Thank you.
Process the application. Got it? Okay.
Just to be clear, Mayor, any application that is submitted does have to go through a full staff analysis. There has to be environmental review, and there will be public hearings at the end that will have to come back to the council for a final decision.
Okay. Yes, Deputy Mayor?
Can I just, a closing remark? Now you've got your work cut out for you to go out and win support of the community, and that's not an easy job. And a lot of good projects died because people weren't smart enough to go and to ask people to see what they wanted and to ask them what they needed to do to win their support. Don't be that person. Go out and figure out what you have to do to build something the community really wants, consider everyone's interests, and build the support. Help Chins figure out what their future is if it's not on your property.
And let it be in Vista.
Yeah, be one of those great developers that's visionary and communicates with the public, and you'll be successful.
Okay, with that, are these, okay. With that, we are moving to oral communications. So we're done with that issue and that discussion item, and we're going to move on to our oral communications, and I have two speakers. So I'll call my speakers. I have Nina Woodward, and she's followed by Molly Rubenstein.
I will be very, very fast because it's late and I want you to get to your chicken.
It's Taco Tuesday, if anything's open
My wife
anymore.
appreciates that.
My name is Nina Woodard, and I am the chairman of the Vista Silver Star Foundation, which was built founded by forward-thinking members of the Senior Commission in order to support the Vista Gloria McClellan Adult Activity and Resource Center. And I think it's very timely and I wanted to come in and give you guys an update because you were very generous in letting us come before you before we lost our past chair, Nancy Croft, who passed away in an untimely loss for us. But yesterday on the news, the Senior Center, San Diego's Senior Commission Foundation published an article finding a report that said that all the senior centers in San Diego County are going to be in trouble because of the baby boomers who are aging out, and they're not prepared to really be able to deal with them. And we're here on the foundation board to try to help our senior center survive that by being fundraising arm for the senior center. We were lucky enough, with Nancy's help before she passed away, to receive, which we didn't find out until just a few months ago, a grant from the county commissioners for some money to launch an event, and we're going to hold a Kentucky Derby party next May, which we would like to invite all of you to come and be with us for. We're going to stream live the Kentucky Derby, invite people to come in hat and enjoy, and then have a dinner gala following the Kentucky Derby event. We'll hold it at the Senior Center. I'm also really looking for board members right now, so if you know somebody in finance who'd be interested in a board position to help us push this forward. We're also looking for anybody with fund development experience that could help us foster a broader fund development effort. But we thank you for your support. We'd never be where we are, even still in existence, if you all hadn't given us funding in the very first place. And I just wanted you to know we're out there working hard to try to make it all survive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Molly.
Mayor and City Council.
Talk right in the microphone so we can all hear you.
Then you have to lower it a real lot. My name is Molly Rubenstein, and for the past 9 years, I've been taking trips with Culture Caravan. Since last year, I have also been helping to plan these trips. I wrote the current brochure and the one that's coming up. Recently, I was asked to be a trip leader, which I haven't done, but I've been doing my 1 shift a week in the office. I consider myself very, very involved. I'm alarmed by what I have been witnessing in the past year. Donna Meester, who is the Senior Center Director, has canceled several of the trips that we have planned for the next quarter. She has reduced the number that we're allowed to have per month from 6 trips to 4 trips, except for December when there's a lot of Christmas things planned. She has banned the use of the large motor coaches that we use for trips that are further away. And she has added so many fees that the trips are going to be cost prohibitive to people like myself who are on Social Security. An example of that is a show where the ticket is $34. And the last time I looked, the price per person was going to be $85. So that's more than double on a city bus that we don't need to rent. I think that her intent is to abolish or eliminate Culture Caravan. I think that would be very, very sad. It's a wonderful diversion for retired people who get bored.
I need you to wrap up.
It gives an opportunity to go places that people would not otherwise be able to go because they can't drive long distances.
Your time is up, so I need you to end.
Okay. I don't know. I'd like the council to maybe talk to the city manager about talking to Donna Meester about the need to keep it.
City manager's listening. He's right here, so he can do that. So
I'm sorry. Okay.
So thank you. Thank you. We got the information, and he'll go from there. Okay.
I only noticed this moment that it says underneath what everybody is.
That's fine. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, with that is the end of our speakers. So I will go down and let me do my comments here, and then I'll go down the row for. Let's see. First, cool down at the Wave Water Park this coming Labor Day, which is coming right up. The park is open from 10 to 4. Mark your calendar for Military Appreciation Day on Sunday, September 15th. Gosh, I can't believe August is already almost gone. So, but September 15th, active or retired personnel receive 1 free admission for each ID and up to 6 tickets at a reduced cost. Information is online at thewavewaterpark.com. So don't be a victim of the latest scams targeting seniors. The McClellan Senior Center is presenting a free educational session on September 4th from 10 to 11:30 in the morning at the center about the latest scams targeting seniors. And last, congratulations to City's Economic Development Director, Kevin Ham. Is he back there still? Did he make it? Congratulations, Kevin. He's been selected as the 2019 International Economic Development Council Jeffrey A. Finkel Organizational Leadership Award recipient. This award recognizes an individual who's led an economic development organization with integrity, tenacity, and a philanthropic spirit for 15-plus years and has played a pivotal role in the success of the organization. So we're all very proud of you, Kevin. Proud of Kevin for being selected among his peers from across the country. So congratulations to you. With that, I'll start with Karina. Councilmember Contreras.
All right. So let me pull this up real quick here. I just wanted to let everybody know that I do have a town hall coming up. It is following Wednesday, September 4th. This town hall will be focused on the city budget. Again, it's for everybody in the city of Vista. You can come, you can listen, participate. City staff will be there. But essentially what I'm looking to do is we went from a 1-year budget to a 2-year budget, and I think a lot of people just want to learn more about it. So I'm providing the opportunity to do that. Again, that's going to be September 4th, which is the next Wednesday. It is at the Linda Rhodes Neighborhood Center, which is 600 North Santa Fe Avenue, and it's the gym in the VAPA field area. Doors open at 6 p.m. The meeting starts at 6:30, and I look forward to seeing a bunch of people there. And bring your questions. So that's all I have to say. Oh, but you know what? Let me just say that National Senior Citizens Day at the Senior Center was awesome, and I danced so much. And everybody was dancing. People were doing line dancing. It was jam-packed. So it was a beautiful sight and very well received.
Thank you. Councilmember Green.
Thank you guys all for staying for the entire meeting. Thank you guys all for speaking. Congratulations, Kevin, on being such a big deal. That is pretty awesome. I also wasn't sure if you guys knew or not. Yesterday was International Dog Day. So I just like to say that I love my puppy Pancake. Have a great night, everybody.
Deputy Mayor Franklin.
Thanks to all the citizens who came out to speak tonight, and to the staff. And for anybody in the city who wants to reach me, you can find my cell phone and email address on the city's website. I look forward to hearing from you and speaking to you directly.
Councilmember Rigby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I too want to say thank you to everybody who came out tonight to speak to us. And thank you to those of you who are still here this evening. We don't usually get too many people at the very end, so I appreciate it. And thank you to staff very much for all that you do for not just for us, but for our city. Your hard work does not go unnoticed. And another shout out to Kevin. Congratulations. I talked to him earlier, and I told him that I know that other cities have approached him in the past, and I expect more will now after he wins this award. And I asked him to please not pay any attention to the people talking to him about moving away from our city. We want to keep our economic development director. So I just want to say thank you to everybody to come out. And again, if you have any other comments or questions, just come on down.
City Manager.
Well, I'll follow up on that. Kevin is very deserving, and now we will call him Kevin Big Deal Ham. But as all of you know, he's done a lot of great things for Vista. He's an instrumental team member, and we're very lucky to have him in Vista, because I know there's a lot of other cities that would like to have his expertise. With that, it's a pleasure, and it's also with sadness that I announced that our fire chief, Jeff Hahn, is going to be retiring after 35 years with the city. He's had a wonderful career going from firefighter all the way to fire chief, and he's been fire chief for almost 4 years now and has done a great job with the fire department, and we're definitely going to miss him. And he's back there weeping next to Kevin. But I know that after 35 years, he's ready for retirement, and he's got a lot of great things planned for himself, so I'm very happy for Jeff. 2 items here is this Vista Library and City Hall will be closed for Labor Day, so that means trash service will be pushed back 1 day. And the city is holding 2 community meetings to inform residents and stakeholders about the Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG, program to solicit feedback on community needs. First meeting will be held on Monday, September 16th, and the next will be on Thursday, September 26th. Both meetings will be here at the community room on this campus, and it'll be from 6 to 7:30. There's also an online survey at the City of Vista, cityofvista.com, but we encourage people to come and share their thoughts and opinions with the city. So thank you.
City Attorney? Darryl
No
Piper?
comments this evening. Thank you, Mayor.
How about the city clerks down there? Neither one of you have anything? Okay, well, with that, we are adjourned at 9:29. Happy Labor Day, everybody.